Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Accidentally Awakens Rinnegan during Chunin exams. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Their power and allegiance. Guys, is that what I think it is? Choji looked down at the redhead and asked, startled. Her eyes had changed. They were now a different color, but they still had the Rinnegan pattern. Holy shit, she has the Rinnegan, Kiba shouted. That's the reason she made me think of Naruto. Yugito's gaze expanded. Shinra Tensai. Fire Country. Hospital, Konoha. His eyes fluttered open and his senses were overwhelmed with pain. He hurt, a lot. He let out a moan as the sunlight streamed in through the open window, making him wonder why the curtains were left open while the patient slept. Shaking himself awake, he attempted to find his location by looking around. He recognized right away that he was in the hospital and recalled what had transpired. "You're awake at last," came from the window in a familiar voice. With a knowing smirk, Jiraiya said, "Your mother was just as stubborn as you are." How did Arrow Sennin end up? The last thing I recall was. He reflected, but he was unable to pinpoint the end of the fight. Jiraiya grunted, "You and the Uchiha brat were going at it pretty damn heavily. You won. In fact, you broke the guy's left arm with a Kyuubi. Enhanced Rasengan." After giving him a startled look, Naruto let out a sigh and said, "I'm sorry." "What for?" Jiraiya inquired, but she was aware of the response. The blonde answered, "I shouldn't have done it, for getting into that fight." That was met with a snort from Jiraiya, who said, "I promise you that you are not the first person to send a teammate to the hospital, regardless of rank. Hell, I couldn't stand the guy, so when Orochimaru was a Jonin and I was a Chunin, I put him in the hospital." Hearing that, Naruto laughed and said, "Still, I'm sorry." With a sigh, Jiraiya said, "Kid, it doesn't matter. Actually, where you want to go from here is what matters." "What do you mean?" Naruto asked, looking at him bewildered. "What I mean, kid, is this, the Gamma." Sennin smirked at him. "Would you like to accompany me to my training as an apprentice?" The offer caused Naruto's eyes to widen. Aye. How long would we be away?" he asked. 3 years, Jiraiya candidly replied. "You know about Akatsuki, right?" The brunette replied with a wink. "Well, they're gonna start hunting Jinchuuriki in 3 years, so you need to be able to defend yourself by then." "Okay, I'll take care of it. Thank you," Naruto nodded. Just laughing, Jiraiya turned to walk away, saying, "Don't thank me just yet. My student, you still have a lot to learn." "You're leaving?" The Rinnegan user was asked by Yugito. They were at his apartment right now, where he had bags packed for the trip he was taking later in the day. Naruto replied, "Yeah, packing away the trash that was all over the floor. Give the guy a break, he's a 12-year-old living alone." She inquired, "How long will you be gone?" 3 years, give or take a few months," Naruto said, grinning piteously at her. 3 years? Was her shocked reaction. "I need to get stronger if I want to face Akatsuki. What about you?" Naruto nervously nodded. "Me?" Raising an eyebrow, Yugito inquired. "I guess I'll stick around here. After all, I am the Kumo ambassador." Naruto merely grinned and said, "Well, what?" He said, "I'll miss you too, Yugito," and he slung his backpack over one shoulder. "The place is yours. For as long as you want it," he said, tossing her the keys as he passed her. Yugito was at a loss for words, but she made up her mind fast and raced to catch up with him. "Ready to go, brat?" Jiraiya inquired of his recent trainee. He was standing next to Tsunade, Kakashi, and the group known as the Konoha 12 inches, Sasuke and Sakura excluded. Naruto waved to the Genin and Shikamaru. "Yeah, I'm ready." "Troublesome blonde, you can guess who it is." "What was that Shika?" Ino questioned in an overly cordial manner. Naruto quickly said, "I'll see you in 3 years. Bye guys, and girls," after receiving a sharp glare from Ino. A voice interrupted the Sennin and his apprentice as they were about to leave. "Hey idiot, wait." Yugito stopped in front of Naruto, who spun around. Looking at her bewildered, he asked, "What is it, Yugito?" She just grabbed his face on both sides and pulled his lips to hers without saying anything. Kiba whistled at the sight of the action, surprising the others. But as they both got comfortable in the kiss, neither of them gave it any thought. When Naruto gave Kakashi a glare, He coughed to get their attention and was clearly amused. To resume speaking, Yugito stepped back and cleared her throat, saying, "Well, take care of yourself." With a simple smile, Naruto moved aside and started to follow Jiraiya. With a lifetime commitment, he vowed, "I'll be back," and peered over his shoulder. Yugito nodded as she watched them disappear from view. With the two gone, everyone began to leave the scene. When the others had left, Tsunade approached the girl and inquired, "Are you going to be okay?" "I'll be fine. He promised to come back," Yugito said with a nod. Tsunade grinned and nodded, saying, "He always keeps his promises." With a smile, Yugito said, "I know, the Katsuyu." Senin asked, "How would you like to become my apprentice?" To her surprise, Yugito looked up and said, "Thank you. It's a privilege, Tsunade-sama. Please none of that. Just call me Shisho. Fire Country. Hospital, Konoha. You lost. Badly at that." Sakin laughed as he peered out the window. They had swiftly made their way to the Uchiha's room after taking out the hospital's guards. At the word, Orochimaru's power, Sasuke spat. Wasn't enough. That demon was too powerful for it. "Uchiha, watch your tongue," the redhead said. Tayuya forewarned him. "Orochimaru wants you, Uchiha, so we've come to get you," Sakin urged. "He can give you the power to defeat your brother," and it succeeded. "All right, then," smirked Sasuke at them. "I don't care what it takes to obtain the power I desire as long as I get it." Sasuke was strolling along the village's path later that evening. Sakura stood by the side of the path and said, "I thought I'd find you here." "What are you doing here?" Sasuke inquired. "I'm waiting on you. I don't want to be without you because I love you. Please take me with you, even though I know I can't convince you to stay." Sakura pleaded with him, her eyes welling with tears. Sasuke gave her a simple look before walking past her and saying, "Do what you want." She said, "Thank you," and turned to follow him. Thus, that day, the world's destiny was altered. Fire Country. Hokage's office, Konoha. "What do you mean they're missing?" Kakashi's voice reverberated through the tower's corridors. "You asked me to check on Sakura and Sasuke, but I can't find them anywhere," Shizune said as she stood in front of him to deliver the report. "I am unable to locate any of the guards assigned to Sasuke's room, so they are also missing." "How bad is it?" Kakashi asked, rubbing his forehead in response. "I went and checked with the security department and well, according to them there was a disturbance in Konoha's detection barrier late last night," Shizune said, taking a breath before continuing. "Because of its small size, everyone mistook it for a wild animal." "Are you saying my students abandoned the village?" Kakashi inquired. "No, I'm not," Shizune shook her head. "We can only presume that the guards were taken against their will because they are no longer present." "Get me ni Yugito and Nara Shikamaru right now," Kakashi said, nodding in response. "Yes, Hokage. Sama," Shizune nodded in response to the command. "You wanted to see us Hokage? Sama?" lazily, Shikamaru inquired. "Yes I did," Kakashi said with a nod. "Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke vanished from the village late last night. We think they've been taken hostage." "By who?" the Nara asked, his expression growing serious. The Hokage replied, "We think it was Otto. It's no secret that Orochimaru wants the Sharingan." Excuse me for speaking out of turn Hokage. Sama, but isn't this a job for Jonin or Anbu?" Yugito inquired incoherently. Kakashi replied, "Normally yes, but I have no one to spare for a mission like this right now." "What are our orders?" Shikamaru inquired. "Get together as many seasoned genin as you can, and then pursue them. They have a 5-hour head start and are undoubtedly headed for Sound Country. It's better if you move quickly," Kakashi answered. Comprehensive of Hokage. Sama, Yugito bowed in turn. Forest, near Katana Mountain in the Fire Country. They needed 15 minutes to gather the members of Team Shikamaru, which included Kiba, Neji, and Choji. Naturally, Shikamaru led the team, with Yugito following in command due to her position. Even though Neji informed her that he would only agree because Naruto trusted her, everyone else seemed to be in agreement. If he betrayed that trust, he would take her own life. Neji said, "They're up ahead. They appear to be resting." That received a nod from Shikamaru, who said, "Probably from the battle Kiba smelled earlier." "What do we do?" When the group halted, Yugito questioned. "We adhere to the strategy," Shikamaru replied. "Down." Neji and Yugito yelled as they dragged the other members of the team aside. The place where they had stood was riddled with explosions, and the Sound Four materialized in front of them holding what appeared to be a barrel. "What plan is that?" Saken sneered and asked. "How did they know we were here?" Choji inquired. Yugito squinted at the Auto Nins and said, "It doesn't matter right now." "You're damn right about that bitch." Tayuya shot them a sly smile. "Where are Sasuke and Sakura?" Kiba gave them a snarl. "Wouldn't you like to know?" Saken made fun of it. "I'll deal with these jerks," Tayuya declared with assurance. "Don't take too long," Saken said, nodding as he turned to face her. "If you are late, Orochimaru Sama will not be happy." Tayuya grinned and nodded, saying, "This shouldn't take long at all." A moment later, the Sound Four, minus Tayuya, vanished into the trees with the barrel. Shikamaru told his team, "Everyone get ready. We don't know what she's capable of," as soon as he saw her creating hand seals. Saying, "Kachiyose no Jutsu. Doki," Tayuya slammed her palm down. 3 elephant-sized demons materialized in a puff of smoke as Kanji spiraled out of it, saying, "Let's play. Let's have a blast." "Why did I just think of Naruto?" Yugito asked herself, shaking her head. After Tayuya produced what looked to be a flute and began to play, the 3 Doki charged forward and used their weapons to attack the team. But Team Shikamaru dodged the blow and ducked into the trees above. "A fresh strategy is required," Neji moaned, gazing at Tayuya's position below. "I'm thinking," in response, Shikamaru. "Think quicker," Yugito instructed him. Tayuya grinned up at them. "Come on morons, I want to have some fun before I beat you." Symbols began to move across her skin. "What is that?" Choji worriedly inquired. Neji informed them, "That's Uchiha.San had that back during the preliminary. If you remember, he used it against the auto team that was sent to the exam. I've read about curse seals. This is one of them." Yugito clarified, "Orochimaru employs them on his followers to increase their power and allegiance." Guys. Is that what I think it is?" Choji looked down at the redhead and asked, startled. Her eyes had changed. They were now a different color, but they still had the Rinnegan pattern. "Holy shit, she has the Rinnegan," Kiba shouted. "That's the reason she made me think of Naruto." Yugito's gaze expanded. Shinra Tensai. Forest, near Katana Mountain in the Fire Country. The blast of gravity that was released blew away trees, boulders, hell, the earth itself. But after regrouping, Team Shikamaru turned to face the attacker, a young woman about their age with red hair and eyes that they knew all too well. Kiba was shocked and exclaimed, "She has the Rinnegan? What the hell? I thought Naruto was the only one?" Neji thought, "Clearly we were mistaken," when he saw the potent Dujutsu. "This has become much more problematic," Shikamaru remarked, squinting her eyes. Bansho Tenin, the group whirled around, dodging several approaching trees. "You can run, but you can't hide from my eyes, little rats," said Tayuya. Yugito fixed her gaze on the Auto Nin while adhering to the trunk of a nearby tree. "You all get out of here and go after the Uchiha and Pinky. I'll stay here and face her." Kiba growled, "You can't expect us to leave you to fight her alone, can you? I'm the only one here with any experience with the Rinnegan. I know its weakness. If you've got a better idea, I'd love to hear it," Yugito replied. "Besides, the longer we stay here, the closer our mission comes to failure. Get going." "I can handle this," she assured them. "Okay. But don't get yourself killed. Naruto would never forgive me if anything happened to you." Shikamaru nodded in comprehension before he and the other Auto Nins vanished a moment after the other Auto Nins. "Deciding to face me alone? You are either brave or stupid," Tayuya laughed. Yugito smirked, unimpressed. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you without anyone else listening in." Tayuya's eyes widened at the name, Uzumaki. "I want to know where you came from." "Yes, I know your clan name. Only an Uzumaki can wield the Rinnegan since they are descended from the Rakuda. Sennin, so that makes you one. What I want to know is, where did you come from when I know for a fact that the homeland of the Uzumaki was destroyed years ago?" "As if I'll tell you anything, bitch," Tayuya barkingly said. With a glare in his eyes, Yugito said, "I'll make you talk then." Shinra Tensai. Dust erupted as another area of the earth was blasted away by gravity. "Gosh, she's got more control than Naruto," Yugito mused to herself as she got better. Mateki. Genbusa Kyoku, flute in hand, Tayuya muttered. Yugito ducked under the branch to avoid being struck by a doki that emerged from the side and swung its massive club at the blonde. But as she fell, another doki was there to greet her. It brandished a big, double-edged sword at her. Yugito literally blasted herself clear of the path and landed on the ground below using her fire manipulation skills. Kaizuki! Yugito exclaimed, turning quickly to slash at the location of the last doki. But instead of being hit, it avoided the blow and she sliced through a tree, melting it. Not bad, bitch, but not good enough, Tayuya smirked and said. Yugito growled up at her. Why don't you come down here and say that to my face? Suin Raikyu. The redhead exclaimed as two lightning chakra spheres were hurled in her direction, making her smile even wider. She muttered, Shinra Tensai, as the two lightning balls split apart. Damn it, she even possesses Naruto's defense skills. All I have to do is close in and launch an attack from there. Yugito thought, this better work, and set her arm on fire. The blonde called out, Kaizuki, as she slashed the ground in front of her, sending smoke shooting skyward. Tayuya saw and raised her hand, smokescreen. Shinra Tensai, the smoke cloud vanished in an instant, revealing a beaming Yugito. What are you smiling at, bitch? The redhead teased, but when the smile got bigger, she grew nervous. She said, shit, Mateki. Genbusa Kyoku, and resumed playing her flute. Kaizuki. Yugito slashed out from behind her, her arm covered in flames. However, a doki approached from the side and caught her with its club before she could deliver the hit. Yugito shot through a tree and fell several feet to the ground, landing in a heap. A few moments later, the blonde stood awkwardly as the three doki surrounded her and Tayuya looked down at her. The redhead said bluntly, no one has survived the sound of my flute. Mikaya no ran, Tayuya muttered while switching up the music. What is she doing right now? Yugito pondered as he watched the three doki erupt into monsters that looked like fog. What in the world are those objects? Her eyes expanded upon being captured by the trio of monsters. As the fog monsters wrapped themselves around the blonde, Tayuya uttered the words, these spirits will drain your chakra until there is nothing left. You will die here. That's all there is to it. She's right, they're depleting my chakra. If this keeps up, I'll die in minutes, Yugito muttered to herself as she made futile attempts to break free. Her eyes flashed in recognition, maybe I can give them a stomachache if I can't break free. The fog monsters drained Yugito's system of chakra as she began channeling the Nibi's energy. Tayuya was taken aback when the spirits broke free and let out an agonized cry before vanishing into nothingness. The redhead cried out, what did you just do? As the fog monsters vanished. As if I'll tell you anything, bitch, Yugito scoffed at her previous remarks. You dare mock me? Fine, let's see you handle this, Tayuya exclaimed, her face flushing with rage. She waved aside her doki, realizing they were pointless at this point, and raised her flute to her lips once more. She whispered, Mateki. Mugen Ansa, and started to play. The sky turned into what appeared to be a red ocean, and the world around them appeared to warp. Hundreds of bones surrounded Yugito as wires dangled from the ceiling and pinned her to the ground. Yugito screamed in agony as she looked at her arms, which seemed to melt in front of her eyes despite her valiant attempts to free herself. Game over, Tayuya said in a whisper as she got closer. Shinra Tensai, was said as she raised her hand and stood squarely in front of the blonde. A loud crack sounded through the forest, and Yugito gasped. She fell backwards, hitting the ground with a thud a moment later. With her hands clenched, Tayuya stood over her, staring down at her downed opponent for a few satisfying seconds before turning away. I'm sorry I had to kill you, but I can't risk my secret getting out. Now I need to deal with your friends before they have the chance to say anything, the redhead said as she walked away. But she didn't make it very far. A torrent of purple light engulfed the blonde, and a deafening roar sounded out from where Yugito lay. Tayuya whirled around in shock as Yugito appeared to straighten up. Her surrounding purple chakra burst into flames and compressed, forming a cloak around her body that resembled a cat and had a single tail. Tayuya's eyes began to process what she was seeing and she exclaimed, what the fuck is that? That chakra is functioning. Her eyes grew wide with dismay as Yugito abruptly vanished from sight. Motherfucker! She yelled as she quickly spun around, but she was unable to avoid the chakra flame. enhanced slash that swept across her chest. As Yugito landed in front of her, the redhead crashed through the nearby tree, saying, "Come on, Uzumaki. Don't tell me that's the best you've got." Rising from her crash, Tayuya glared at the chakra flame cat. She knew her curse seal wouldn't be able to withstand many more blows like the one it had taken. Even with the drugs Orochimaru had given them, it would eventually have to retract or it would corrupt her body from the inside out. Despite receiving a curse seal, she was aware that Orochimaru wasn't genuinely interested in her. His desire to master jutsu was the reason he hadn't taken her body. Compared to the Rinnegan, the Sharingan was a more obvious choice for him, and she was grateful for that. Tayuya exclaimed, "Bansho Tenin," since he knew that genjutsu would be ineffective in this circumstance. Where Yugito stood, a number of trees were affected, but they appeared to be destroyed the instant they got close. One tree said, "Damn it, why won't you just stop?" Yugito growled, "Because I need answers," as a ball of fire began to enlarge in front of her. Nekomata Enden. The ball shot forward in a jet of flame, destroying everything in its path. Tayuya shouted, covering her face with her arms, "Shinra Tensai." The ball finally burst upward in a hail of dirt, with a loud caw. Boom! After it was done, Tayuya appeared out of breath, her clothes ripped, and her curse seal starting to pull back. "I see you're getting close to your limit," growled Yugito. With a scowl, Tayuya said, "Fuck you. You go first." Yugito shot back, igniting yet another ball of compressed fire. "I have to use this bitch immediately, or else I will not survive." The redhead thought to herself, "I can't survive another attack like that," as her hands found a seal she rarely used unless it was absolutely necessary. Enden Nekomata. As she aimed the fireball at her target, the fire cat let out a cry. Seeing it coming, Tayuya summoned her own jutsu and said, "Chibaku Tensai." And light engulfed the entire world. Senju Tsunade had never been a fan of Konoha's methods, not even as a young child. Her grandfather, who formed Konoha with the Uchiha Madara, was too innocent of future plans. One instance of this is when he distributed the Biju to other nations in order to keep the elemental countries in balance. Even though he was a good man, he did manage to bring some order to the chaotic world they lived in, and when he passed away and her granduncle succeeded him as Hokage, he made some changes to the way Konoha was run, which helped to keep the peace for many years until the First Great Shinobi War, in which he was killed in combat. After her sensei assumed the role, things really started to go south. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a man of many talents, nearly unmatched in both politics and combat, but he also recognized that he was getting older after the Third Great Shinobi War, and he named Namikaze Minato as his successor because he was much better at maintaining order within the council and was nearly unstoppable in combat, having defeated Iwagakure no Sato almost single-handedly. In all honesty, the copy.nin knew he wasn't Kage level by a long shot, but it wasn't his strength that made him Hokage, it was his reputation. He was a man to be feared, second only to Namikaze Minato himself. If it weren't for the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha, Minato would still be Hokage to this day and Kakashi wouldn't have had to take the position. He'd really let himself go in the years since Minato's death, and he knew that if Konoha was going to survive, it needed a Hokage who could protect it with the will of fire, just like all the previous Hokages, so he stopped slacking off and worked on regaining his lost strength from before Kyuubi attacked. Awakens. Senju Tsunade was reminded of unpleasant memories by the title. She had lost her fiancé copyright Dan and her younger brother Nawaki in the Second and Third Wars while serving Konoha. As a result, Tsunade came to believe that Konoha was to blame for their deaths and went missing for a long time with the Yondaime Hokage's approval. In all honesty, if it weren't for one Uzumaki Naruto's utter unpredictable nature, she would never have set foot in Konoha again. Next was Ni Yugito, her new apprentice. She saw that she and Naruto were infatuated, but they also knew that as teammates, they had to keep their relationship professional, so it didn't really surprise her when Yugito pulled them into a kiss as Naruto left with that pervert Jiraiya. The reason Tsunade decided to take the young girl on as an apprentice was because she reminded her of herself when she was that age. Though none of the other villages acknowledged it, Konoha was and still is the best place to find medical help. She stood up for what she believed in, always fought with all her heart, and was completely dedicated to helping people. When the young girl began working at the hospital, Shizune also helped out by giving her some textbooks on medicine and the like. One of the best examples of a medic.nin was Tsunade herself, who was renowned for her abilities to heal almost anything that could be physically healed. Tsunade gave Yugito a sort of test in which she had to operate on an unconscious fish that had become poisoned. Yugito had passed her little test on her first try. That simple fact drove him one very important detail about the girl. Even the best medic. Nins took months to get it right, so it came as a big surprise when she found that the poison was gone from the fish at the end of the day and Yugito was looking quite smug standing off the two side. Yugito had potential in the medical industry that was comparable to her own. Tsunade was terrified by this realization because it felt like she was looking in a mirror every time she saw the girl. So naturally she had a vested interest in her. Jiraiya had even commented during one of their drunken get-togethers that Yugito looked and acted just like she did as a teenager, when she was with Dan. Tsunade was out here now because she didn't want her to have to go through what she had. She knew something was wrong when she heard that Yugito and half of the Konoha 12 feet had set off after what appeared to be Sakura and Sasuke being kidnapped. She accompanied the medical team that had been sent after the Suna team that had arrived as part of the now allied village to provide assistance. She had told the other medic Nins to go on while she set out to find her apprentice, but about 27 miles from Konoha she felt the background aura of a disturbing chakra she knew to be that of a Jinchuuriki's Biju. Having faced several during the wars, she knew they were not to be taken lightly and that it could only be Yugito. But the sight that met her eyes was not what she had anticipated. A sizable crater, roughly 80 feet in diameter, lay beneath a layer of debris. Flames flickered here and there, and she glimpsed two unconscious figures in the center, one of them clearly Yugito, though she appeared to have been through hell, as her clothes were torn as though something had attempted to rip them off. The other girl was in much worse shape. Bloodstains on them matched the color of her hair, and when Tsunade looked more closely, she realized that the girl was an Auto Nin, which made her eyes harden. Thankfully, they were both still alive, though they were far from out of the woods. Literally, it took her all of 5 seconds to decide what to do, and she quickly created a shadow clone. After she'd patched them up as best she could, Tsunade and her clone picked them up and they headed towards Konoha. "You had better buy me some sake for making me worry, Yugito-chan." Fire Country. Main gates, Konoha. Though it appeared to the outside world to be a military fortress, the village hidden in the leaves was a peaceful village. Being a ninja village meant it had a bloody past and was regarded by many as the strongest of all of them. The village had recovered from the failed Suna Auto joint attack and was once again experiencing prosperity in the 3 years that had passed. The last of the Konoha 10, that is, all the rookies save Sasuke and Sakura, were now Chunin or above, which explained why things had been quiet lately. For instance, Hyuga Neji, a complete Jonin, was regarded as the best member of the small group. He needs a wake-up call, man. 2 well-known individuals were approaching the village through the front gates. The first was a man in his mid-50s with red clothing and gray hair. The man was instantly identified by the on-duty guards as Jiraiya of the Sannin, a living legend indeed. But the second individual was a young, blonde man of 15 who was dressed in a red trench coat with black flames covering the bottom. He wore a black-orange jumpsuit underneath, and his cheeks bore 6 different whisker-like marks. As expected, the guards identified him as Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the Rakuda Sennin's heir, the surviving Hokage of Yondaime, and a pupil of the Gamma Sennin Jiraiya. For a child who graduated last in his class, that is quite the resume. Too excited to pay them any attention as he went by, he was too happy to be back home. He was excited to finally meet the one person he had wished to see again in all of the elemental countries, though. He wasted no time in leaping high to land atop a massive post that overlooked the village. With a sly smile, Jiraiya observed his pupil, with the boy's father's image superimposed on his body. With his arms extended, the blonde maelstrom exclaimed, "Hello Konoha. Home is where the heart is, ha-ero, Sennin." Sure enough, Jiraiya leaned against the post and snorted, "Why do you believe that I travel constantly?" "Because you're looking for inspiration for your books," Naruto laughed at that. He heard someone say, "How true," from the building behind him. "Long time no see, Naruto," exclaimed Kakashi as he turned to face Naruto while she was reading an Icha book on the balcony. "It's good to see you again. It seems like you've grown up." Naruto leapt over and said, "You too, Hokage Sensei," with a little too much enthusiasm. At hearing the nickname, Kakashi moaned, "Please don't call me that." Naruto remarked, "You haven't changed at all, as he touched down on the balcony. "Oh, I almost forgot. I have something to give you," he said, removing an orange book that Kakashi recognized right away. N Naruto Y.U. H. How D. Did Y.U. is a feat in and of itself for someone to reduce the Hokage to a string of hardly understandable words in a matter of seconds. It's the first in the series in 3 years and the most recent. Though I think it's boring, I thought you'd like it. I could have done better, the blonde said to him. It's so beautiful, Kakashi said, his eyes welling with tears as he held the book. Now, I could do with some ramen, chuckled Naruto. A moment later, he leapt down and made his way to his favorite ramen stand. Kakashi knelt next to Jiraiya, and the two of them started to follow. How good is he? It was an easy question. The Gamma. Sennin replied. Good enough to face you on even ground in an all-out fight. It was the best I could do in only 3 years. Unlike with Minato, who I trained for 6 years. As they moved, the Hokage questioned, leadership skills? Jiraiya told him, he knows when to be serious and when to joke around. Holy. Naruto turned a corner and exclaimed. He didn't realize Yugito was the red-haired girl standing in the middle of the street next to Senju Tsunade. And Naruto? The Kumo nin stammered as soon as he turned to face him. He just said, wow, giving her the once-over. She was taller and her clothes were still essentially the same as they were 3 years prior, but now they were more purple than black. Judging from her appearance alone, she had grown as well. Naruto had to beat down his perverted side to keep himself from bleeding nosebleeds. Jiraiya fared much better because Tsunade had experienced the same thing. You've matured, Yugito interrupted the quiet. I mean, you've become more beautiful, Naruto corrected himself. I am aware of Anakin and Padme from Star Wars. And you're a charmer now too, idiot, Yugito smirked and said. With a fake wince, Naruto asked, did you miss me? With each and every jutsu thus far, she snapped back. With a hurt expression, Naruto said, you wound me so, and put his hand on his chest. Getting his attention, the redhead questioned, so you're Uzumaki Naruto? Somehow I was expecting something more than a shithead, she grumbled. Actually, it's Namikaze Naruto now and… Who the hell are you exactly? Naruto scowled at her. Well, I'm a friend of this bitch here, she stated, indicating Yugito. She's just being herself, don't mind, Yugito dismissed the remark. If you say so, Naruto dismissed that with a shrug. Sighing from the side, Tsunade said, enough with the sentimental reunion. Okay, Naruto, Kakashi said, closing his book and grabbing their attention. I am currently administering the Jonin exam to you. Now onwards, playtime is over. After nodding, Naruto inquired, where are Sakura and Sasuke? I assumed I would have encountered them by now, inquired Naruto. Yugito was at a loss for words as he replied, Naruto? I believe there's something you ought to be aware of. Fire Country. Training ground, Konoha. Later that day, Kakashi and Naruto arrived at the training field. The Hokage was wearing 2 bells around his waist when they went in. They moved toward the middle clearing with the 3 wooden posts standing there. The guidelines remain unchanged. You are free to employ any strategy you choose to win the bells from me. As his former pupil walked up to the posts, Kakashi said, you have until sunrise tomorrow. This location evokes memories. Naruto shook his head. It's unbelievable that Sasuke and Sakura would become traitors. Remembering his other former students made Kakashi sigh. I didn't want to believe it either, but they did. Just ask Shikamaru, he said. When I see them again, I'll make them pay for betraying us. Naruto turned to face him. Kakashi closed his book abruptly and said, it is not necessary to think about that at this time. Shall we get started now? With a smile, Naruto tightened his hite around his head and said, Hokage. Sensei, you won't be able to read your book this time. This is going to take more effort than last time, smirked Kakashi as he raised his hite to reveal his Sharingan. You're right, Naruto roared as he leapt out of the earth, unleashing his signature move. Rasengan. He exclaimed, striking Kakashi square in the chest. But, Kakashi burst into smoke, revealing itself to be a shadow clone. Looking behind him, the Hokage inquired, trying to end it early? I didn't say start yet, said Naruto, glancing over his shoulder to see his former sensei preparing to drive a kunai into his stomach. You didn't say I couldn't start yet either, Naruto said with a simple smile. Somehow, A second Naruto appeared behind Kakashi, saying, "Your move, Hokage, sensei." The clone behind him caught Kakashi's attention, saying, "You've improved." He vanished in a cloud of smoke, and Naruto told his clone to come out, wherever you are, as well. The blonde cautiously peered around in the quiet space before saying, "You're not left. That leaves below since you're not above and correct. Doden. Dorya, Katsu." He yelled as he slammed his palm into the ground. For a brief moment, the ground erupted upwards before splitting in two, revealing a surprised Kakashi in the middle with the words, "You can't escape my eyes, sensei." "You've grown quite well, Naruto. Now I don't have to hold back," Kakashi grinned beneath his mask. "Reikari," he exclaimed as he swiftly vanished and then resurfaced above the blonde. "Shunpo no Jutsu," flashed as Naruto's eyes grew wide and he vanished in a flash of yellow. Kakashi landed where he had been standing moments earlier, and Naruto skidded a few feet away, saying, "That was a little too close." "That wasn't just some Hiraishin no Jutsu you used," Kakashi said, whirling his Sharingan. "It's something I've been working on since my fight with Gaara," Naruto said, his eyes briefly turning gray. "Yes, but I can already see its weakness. It all depends on how fast your opponent can react," Kakashi said. That was met with Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu from Naruto. Hundreds of shadow clones materialized and advanced upon them. But Kakashi anticipated them and responded as he usually did when outnumbered. Using only taijutsu, he outwitted them and appeared to destroy them with ease. He never took his eyes off the original Naruto, even though it took him 27 minutes to destroy them all. Rising to the top of a branch, Kakashi peered down at the blonde standing amidst the remnants of his clones. Naruto carried out his strategy after settling into position by forming a pair of hand seals and striking. When they were in Wind Country 2 years ago, he learned one of the two most potent wind jutsus in his repertoire. The goal of the strategy he devised was to stop his rivals cold, not to harm them. Naruto muttered, "Futon Kazuryuden no Jutsu," before launching his assault. When Kakashi turned, he saw a large dragon made of wind charging at him, although at first he thought it was the Kyuubi. Clearly taken aback by the dragon's attack, the Hokage managed to dodge it just in time to see it rip through the forest, uprooting trees and knocking Kakashi back to the ground. After that, Naruto leapt high into the air to unleash his next attack. Futon Renkuden, a human usable Oni Jutsu created by the Ichibi no Tanuki. Suna no Shukaku, though most people were unable to use it properly due to the chakra requirements. Because it used up all of Jiraiya's chakra in one use, he could only use it once a week. But Naruto didn't have that issue because of the Kyuubi. Just before it hit, Kakashi vanished into the earth, Doden Mogaragakure no Jutsu. Under Naruto's seemingly unending assault, trees and dirt were blown away with an echoing explosion. Once the dust had settled, Naruto was using his Rinnegan to track Kakashi underground while standing in the middle of the small crater he had made. At that moment, Kakashi shot up from behind him, his fist encased in lightning. He yelled, "Reikari," as he prepared to stab the blonde. Naruto turned to Shinra Tensei, his defense mechanism, realizing he couldn't avoid this time. Gravity sent Kakashi flying back into the trees, but he bounced back fast and was able to stand up straight once more. He said, "Your reaction time with the Rinnegan has improved. You've come a long way, as evidenced by your use of various elemental jutsu. In fact, I think I underestimated you because you still don't have a bell." After spending 3 years with Jiraiya of the Sannin, Naruto was accustomed to mind games and knew when to ignore what his opponent was saying. Since the beginning of the fight, he had only been using high-level jutsus, so he was aware that he was nearing his limit and that the numerous shadow clones he had previously made had consumed a significant amount of his chakra reserves. They both knew that he would have to give up quickly or else lose. He knew that Kakashi would follow him wherever he went, so his only other choice was to retreat and wait for his reserves to replenish. At that moment, he and Kakashi locked eyes, and the world vanished, to be replaced by Kyuubi tearing through what appeared to be Konoha. With his hands sealed, Naruto released a powerful burst of chakra and said, "Kai." Naruto noticed that his surroundings had returned to normal after the genjutsu broke. "You've broke out of my genjutsu. That's good, but we both know that Itachi is better," Kakashi said. "All right, then, let's give it a go." He shot a lightning metal dog in the direction of the blonde. I see you've been able to make your jutsu automatic now so you don't have to consciously control it all the time, said Naruto as it vanished the instant it touched him. Lifting his hand, Naruto mumbled, Bansho Tenin. Abruptly, Kakashi found himself drawn towards Naruto, who was now extending another spiraling chakra sphere, called Rasengan. As soon as Kakashi was struck by his attack, he vanished into lightning bits. The real Kakashi entered to complete the task as the electricity that was released stunned every nerve in Naruto's body, sending him to his knees. But as soon as he was in range, the Hokage was forced to stop when 4 seals rapidly went into effect on the surrounding ground. A Hojen fa, Baku, huh? Luring me into this by using your own body as bait. Kakashi thought to himself. A very effective trap if a bit reckless, as one of Naruto's clones materialized and dragged the real Naruto away from him. This won't hold me for long, Naruto, you know that. It doesn't have to. Naruto held up his hand while muttering in agony. Bansho Tenin. And the bells were abruptly yanked from Kakashi's grasp and placed in Naruto's. It doesn't matter if you can beat me, sensei. I still win by default, Kakashi said with a laugh, breaking the seals around him with a click of his fingers and approaching the blonde. Naruto, congrats on becoming a Jonin. I'm sure your parents would be proud, sighed Naruto. Don't worry about the jutsu I hit you with. It will wear off in a little while. Fire Country. Marketplace, Konoha, you know that I had already concluded that you lacked intelligence, but to use your own body as bait? That is truly the best. What on earth were you thinking? As she, Yugito, and Naruto moved through the village, Tayuya questioned. At the time, it seemed like a good idea, shrugged Naruto. That caused Yugito to sigh, saying, you're still a reckless idiot. Oh man, I am starving. Come on, let's get some Ichiraku ramen, Naruto sighed. Does that mean you're paying? As they walked, Yugito questioned him. Well, I do have some money on me, but it might be a little close, Naruto said, glancing over his shoulder. With narrowed eyes, Yugito said, define a little. Fortunately, he was stopped when Shikamaru and Tamari, 2 well-known ninja, emerged from the throng. Hi, both of you over here. Take a peek at who chose to arrive at the front gates this morning. Naruto? Shikamaru inquired, startled. Glancing between him and the Suna nin next to him, Naruto said, Hey Shikamaru, are you two on a date or something? Shaking his head, Shikamaru said, not even close. Oh please, like I would ever. I'm being forced to go because I'm the Suna ambassador, and the Chunin exams are almost back on schedule. Tamari clarified, this lazy bum is supposed to be my escort. Huh, Chunin exams. I assume that everyone else is now a Chunin since I just finished my Jonin exam this morning. Naruto inquired. Mostly though Neji, Lee, Yugito, Kankuro, this lady here and I are all Jonin now, the Nara said. What about Gaara? Naruto inquired. It was Tamari who responded, he's the Kazekage now. Naruto sighed at the news, damn he beat me to it. Oh well, I'll get there eventually. So you understand what I'm asking of you? Kakashi leaned back in his chair and asked. The only noticeable difference in the Hokage's office was the ambience. I comprehend, Hokage. Sama, replied the Anbu in front of him. Then hand in your mask. While you are on the team your codename will be Yamato, Kakashi advised him. The Anbu said, Yamato. An interesting name, taking off his mask and setting it on the desk. Knock, knock, Kakashi called, come in, and the door opened. A moment later, you're late. Came out with Naruto, Yugito, and Tayuya. Sorry, there was a black cat in the street so we had to take the long way around, Naruto said with a smile. With a sunny genjutsu behind him, Kakashi grinned and said, oh, so you finally met Sakuya-chan. That was its name. Blinked Naruto. Watching the exchange, Tayuya moaned, they're a pair of idiots. Yamato sighed, you've left me with quite a job this time, senpai. Yugito remained silent, having grown accustomed to them both already. Anyway, let's get back to business, Kakashi rasped. With Sasuke and Sakura no longer with us, I am assigning Yamato here and Tayuya to Team Naruto under your command, Naruto. Understanding, Naruto nodded. Have you got a mission for us? Just as Kakashi was about to speak, he heard a disturbance outside the door. A moment later, the door flew open, revealing Eureka, the slightly worn out decoder.nin. Oh my god, bad news, folks. We just found out that Akatsuki has taken the Cage hostage. Eureka shocked the group by saying. Naruto team, you should go to Suna for your first mission, I think. Evaluate the circumstances and get back to me. Then help the Cage get back on his feet, Kakashi gave the order. Yes sir. After 10 minutes, Team Naruto was prepared to depart from the main gates, with Tsunade, Kakashi, and Iruka present to bid them farewell. Good luck. Iruka wished them luck. Naruto turned to walk away, saying, thank you. Aim to maintain their alignment, Yugito. Shan, Tsunade instructed her trainee. I'll try, Yugito said in reply. Come on, let's get going already, Tayuya urged. A blur that was red and white suddenly appeared in front of them. Hey Naruto. Are you going on a mission? Jiraiya inquired. Yes, we're on our way to Suna right now, Naruto replied. Jiraiya said, oh. So you already know about the Cage. Is it wise to send these two? He asked turning to face Kakashi. After a brief pause, Kakashi answered, maybe not, but I'm sure they'll be fine. If you say so, sighed Jiraiya, gesturing for Naruto to come along. Come over here for a second Naruto. The blonde followed instructions, moving a short distance away to avoid being overheard. Akatsuki are not to be taken lightly, so please don't use that jutsu. Don't push your luck. You recall what transpired the previous time, correct? I know Arrow. Senin. You don't have to remind me, sighed Naruto as he nodded. After it, I spent a week in a hospital bed. I won't use it again unless absolutely necessary. I guess that's the best I'm going to get. Good luck, Jiraiya sighed. Saying, thanks for everything Jiraiya. Sensei, Naruto turned to face his true name for the first time. He said, let's go, and the group launched themselves into the trees. They saw a figure strolling through the forest after traveling for roughly 30 minutes. Yugito said, hey, it's Temari, and the group knelt down next to the Suna Kunoichi. Huh? Surprised. Temari turned to face them. What are you four doing out here? It's a long story. Wind Country, main entrance, Suna. With Temari in tow, the team raced across the dunes at superhuman speeds, leaving a trail of sand and dust in their wake. They were just now getting to Suna. It had taken them 3 days to get there. Moments after they arrived at the village, Suna Jonin, looking a little nervous, approached them. Hey Temari. Sama, it's you again. With a desperate voice, the Suna Jonin begged for help. As she explained the situation, Cage. Sama was kidnapped, as I'm sure you're aware, but Kankuro. Sama chased after them and has been poisoned. She led them through the village and towards the hospital. Kankuro too. How long does he have? Temari inquired, horrified that her two brothers had been beaten so severely. A day or so, at the latest, replied the Suna Jonin. I could be able to help. Let me see him, Yugito said as he moved forward. They moved quickly toward the bed in the room where Kankuro was being held. Doctors crowded the room, along with a few elderly people who appeared startled to see them. When the elderly woman saw Yugito, she lunged directly at her. But then, in a burst of yellow light, Naruto materialized in their midst, knocking Yugito back as she regained her balance. Slug woman, it's been a while, remarked the older woman. Sister, take a close look, another elder said, raising his hand. She's not Tsunade-san, despite how she appears. After a brief period of concentration, the woman laughed and said, oh, I see. I apologize, sweetheart. You just remind me of that slug lady so much that I thought you were her. Whatever. Yugito turned to face Kankuro and shook her head. Naruto turned to Yugito, who was now tending to Kankuro, and sighed, asking, how is he? A moment later, Yugito used her medical ninjutsu to remove what appeared to be a dark substance blob from the Suna Nin's chest and sealed it in a small container. I've removed the poison, but he's still in the woods. Yugito put the container down on the side table and said, I still need to remove the leftover toxins in his system. Is there another medic.nin who can do this? Naruto questioned her, we're on timer here. People just need the supplies and the right formula, Yugito said, nodding. After I write it down, we can leave. How do we track these freaks? Asking from the side was Tayuya. That's simple, Naruto remarked, closing his eyes and placing a hand on Kankuro's head. As he focused, his eyes opened again, revealing the Rinnegan glowing. Akatsuki's general direction is towards the north. Seems like they may be using an old cave system to hide long enough to extract Shukaku. How did you do that? Surprised, Yugito inquired. The origins of all contemporary ninjutsu can be traced back to the Rinnegan and Rakuda. Senin. What do you suppose was the source of the Yamanaka's mental reading ability? Naruto answered. That's a pretty hand, Kyuubi scowled. Why am I not endowed with that skill? Before the team could depart, Tamari said, Wait, I'm going with you. No Tamari, I will be representing Suna during this escapade. You need to stay here and look after everything while we go search for Gaara. Besides, it's been so long since I've taken care of my adorable grandchild, said the previous elderly woman. Grandchild? Naruto asked. Red Desert Sasori. It seems my grandson has joined these, Akatsuki. I wish to reunite with him, the woman said. You got a name, old lady? Kyuubi posed a direct query. Call me Chio. Do not refer to me as elderly. To be young once more, she muttered the final phrase. However, Tamari uttered through clenched hands. Naruto, Yugito, Kyuubi, please bring back Gaara. Don't worry about it, said Naruto, waving it off. I'll settle for the Kazekage owing me a favor for the time being because I'm going to be the next Hokage. Together with Chio, the group left the village and headed toward the mountains that loomed over the desert to the north, following Naruto's command to, let's move out. Naruto gave the order, everyone stop now, and the group moved into a sizable clearing. A few meters away, a shadowy figure stood staring at them with an expression like, oh crap. Is that? Yugito said, pausing as she realized who he was. He's wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Who is this bastard? Kyuubi regarded the man closely before asking. Those eyes. Chio noticed the red hue in the man's eyes and pondered. Uchiha Itachi, Naruto uttered as he saw the Rinnegan appear before his own eyes. You've got a lot of nerve, showing yourself like this. Yugito. Chan, Naruto.kun. It has been a while. Itachi had a harsh, almost indifferent voice. Not long enough, in reply, Naruto snapped. I'm here to take you both in Naruto.kun, Itachi said emphatically. You can try. When Naruto fired back, everything around him burst into smoke. What did you? Genjutsu, has to be, his team asked as it passed away a moment later and revealed itself unconscious on the ground. Itachi uttered the words, you cannot win Naruto.kun, as his body began to resemble a swarm of hawks. Kai, Naruto released a powerful chakra blast, but it was ineffective. Naruto muttered, damn. It didn't work. Guess I'll have to go with my backup plan, before drawing a kunai and stabbing himself in the leg. The wound healed as the illusion crumbled all around him and he withdrew the kunai. Trying to break free from my genjutsu by hurting myself. Fascinating, Itachi thought. If you like that, then you're going to love this, Raiden. Rainami, Itachi was struck by two lightning bolts that shot out of the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki's hands, causing dust to shoot up behind him as he hit the ground. As soon as the attack subsided, Yugito grinned and said, I see you've got a few new tricks. Naruto gave the order, everyone fall back into the trees, and the group leapt back into the trees. Any advice on kicking this guy's ass, old hag? Kyuubi inquired. Just don't look into his eyes and you'll be fine, Chio snorted. Don't refer to me as an old hag either. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. The big ball of fire was coming from above them. Watch out. They split up after Yugito gave a warning. Fa. Jutsu Kya. In. When the fireball touched Naruto's hands, it appeared to vanish. Itachi said, so it looks you've mastered the ability to absorb ninjutsu also, impressive considering your age, as he moved to punch Naruto in the head from the side. Shunpo no Jutsu, Naruto said as he quickly moved away to give himself some space and made a hand seal. As they said, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, dozens of shadow clones appeared all around them. The first clone that approached him from the side was eliminated by Itachi, while another descended from above and attempted to stab him with a kunai. Itachi knocked the clone away by falling back and dodging the attack. This time, 3 more clones appeared from below, knocking him skyward as multiple other clones leapt to stop him. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Itachi's mouth burst into a massive fireball that burned the shadow clones beneath it and ignited the surrounding forest. Afterwards, Itachi flipped around in midair, eliminating the last few clones, and ultimately landed on a tree branch, displaying his most impressive Naruto.kun pose. Odama Raikyu. Just in time, Itachi leapt out of the way before a lightning bolt struck the branch he was standing on. Above them, Yugito seemed to hover motionless, maintaining his altitude through what appeared to be fire manipulation. Futon. Daitopa. The broad gust of wind toppled multiple trees and threw an astonished Itachi back into the open space. As he stood back up, Naruto fell in front of him and said, "We've got you outnumbered, Itachi, surrender." Itachi made multiple hand seals instead of responding. At that moment, Naruto sensed a tug and turned to see that he had thin metal wires wrapped around his arms and legs. Kaden. Karyu Enden. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as Itachi called out as fire erupted down the wires in the shape of a dragon. Shinra Tensai, he did not say, but the flames were extinguished nonetheless. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw Tayuya standing there with a familiar pair of eyes. Naruto said, "You have the Rinnegan," as soon as he noticed. Reversing direction, he said, "We'll talk about this later." To Itachi, who was equally taken aback by this development. Tayuya nodded at the same moment that Yugito descended behind the Uchiha, causing two of Naruto's clones to materialize beside him. Raiden. Raimu. As Yugito launched a lightning spear right through the Nukanon's shoulder, she let out an exclamation. As Itachi's body was shocked until it was immobile, Yugito and the others fell back, saying, "Finish him." The two clones instantly began to charge the jutsu that Naruto still needs to perfect after he extended his hand to them. Chakra screeched like a sickening bell in his hand, and the wind itself followed shortly after. Leaping forward, he forcefully struck the Uchiha's abdomen with the luminous white jutsu. Itachi grinned as light engulfed his surroundings. Futon. Rasengan. The countryside was reduced to a small crater, and everyone covered their eyes. The dust soon lifted, revealing the crater and a disfigured person in the center of it. Naruto approached the body, ignoring the looks he was receiving from his teammates about his previous jutsu. It was not Itachi, whoever it was, that was too simple. Fire Country. Hokage Tower and Konoha. Where do we stand on this team? Kakashi asked, leaning back in his chair with Tsunade and Jiraiya in front of him idly. Naruto still requires minor maintenance, nothing major, well, not counting senjutsu instruction. Jiraiya sighed, "I couldn't fit it in the time we were given. I've taught him a few jutsu for each element, and he's recreated some jutsu that I believe he learned from the Rinnegan. Since he needed assistance controlling the Rinnegan, I must admit that I was hesitant to teach him ninjutsu. The Rinnegan, in contrast to the Sharingan, lets its users acquire jutsu rather than copying them when it encounters one." "I see. Anything else you would like to mention?" Kakashi questioned after a moment. "The Uchiha and the Senju descended from the Rakuda Sennin, but he cannot control Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto is probably the only man alive in the world who even has a remote chance of controlling the Kyuubi no Kitsune, given the two extremely strong clans that were able to control it. I suspect Minato was aware of this as well," Jiraiya went on. "I've seen Naruto access Kyuubi's chakra before. He was able to remain on control before he left with you," Kakashi said. Minato split the Kyuubi's chakra into two halves. The yang half was sealed inside the containment seal with the Kyuubi's soul, and Naruto can draw on its power, Jiraiya said, nodding. The yin half of it, though, wasn't sealed in Naruto. I'm not really sure where it is, but I figure it must be a component of the ki. Although I'm not exactly sure why Minato split it, I think the ki is involved." "What happened?" It was Tsunade who raised the question, feeling the tension in the air. The other two people in the room gave Jiraiya a horrified look as she said, "I used the key to twist Naruto's seal so he could access more of Kyuubi's chakra, and I inadvertently released Kyuubi from its cell." "How is Naruto doing?" Kakashi stood up and asked. "He seemed fine earlier, but if Kyuubi was released, then he should be dead. Not to mention if it is out, then it'll probably come after Konoha again." "Calm down. Kyuubi is still trapped because of Naruto's determination and Rinnegan. He delayed it long enough for me to seal the hole I created, which startled both of them." "How?" Tsunade questioned. "The Yamanaka couldn't even touch the thing." "Where do you think the Yamanaka's jutsu came from?" Jiraiya snorted. "Of course, the Rinnegan. With those eyes, he can read people's thoughts when he holds their heads, and he makes it very difficult for someone to enter his head." Jiraiya shuddered when he said that last line. "But like I said earlier, he can't control the Kyuubi yet. The first time he tried using 4 taels worth of power. Let's just say Setsuna City is looking a little different this summer." I thought Setsuna City was left in ruins during the clan wars. What were you doing there? Tsunade inquired. Training Naruto, of course. The place was abandoned and seemed like a good idea for a training ground. That city is long gone now though, Jiraiya said. As Tsunade said, of course it's long gone. It was reduced to a bunch of ruins during the clan wars, she nodded. I don't mean destroyed like leaving a pile of ruins, Jiraiya merely scoffed. I mean, the city is completely gone now, it's just a bunch of craters. Thereafter, they were silent. How many tails can he use safely? Kakashi asked. With a sigh, Jiraiya replied, 3, however, he declines to use it in case he loses control and is rendered unconscious. He can control it as long as he's conscious, but the Kyuubi's acidic chakra burns a lot. Should it cause sufficient harm to him, particularly if it begins to impact his brain, he will lose consciousness and the chakra will engulf him. In such a scenario, Kyuubi is able to seize the initiative and will strike both friends and enemies alike. Kakashi sighed and said, hopefully Yamato can keep an eye on that. Naruto is the only person who can suppress that chakra, so I wouldn't count on it. That's how easy it is, Jiraiya concluded. After saying, we'll keep an eye on him, Kakashi turned to face the other Sannin in the space. Well, Yugito's past 2 years haven't been all that colorful, in contrast to Naruto. Since you assisted in her training, Kakashi, you ought to be somewhat knowledgeable about it. Tsunade said, sounding almost smug, she is exceptionally skilled at medical ninjutsu and knows a few fire and lightning jutsus. Does that include your monster strength, Heim? Jiraiya made a joke. She glared at him for that, saying, just so you know, it doesn't. As a Jinchuuriki, she is constantly changing, much like Naruto's chakra does because of Kyuubi. If given enough time, she might outperform me in the medical field, but she is physically incapable of using her medical ninjutsu for offensive purposes. What about the Nibi? Jiraiya questioned her. She can control it. Somewhat. I wouldn't go near her when she's using it though, Tsunade replied, nodding. Although she is skilled at what she does, it can be challenging to avoid her attacks when you are attempting to help her. Jiraiya remarked, sounds like Naruto on a bad day. What about the other member of the team? After an interval of silence, Kakashi inquired. If you're referring to that Uzumaki girl, I'll tell you straight away that's bullshit. I'm finding it difficult to accept that she's the brat's sister. She might have acted and looked like a carbon copy of Kushina-chan at that age, but the truth remains that she was one of Orochimaru's personal guards. Do you know the guards that assisted in Sarutobi Sensei's death? Minato and Kushina-chan are the only reasons I haven't gone to question her in person, Jiraiya firmly said. Jiraiya, who is older than he is the one who first activated the Rinnegan. Tsunade declared emphatically, she is the first heir to the Whirlpool Country's throne by law. Remember that Whirlpool Country was destroyed, so it doesn't exist now. She is effectively nothing more than a Konoha Chunin because nobody survived. If you think I'm exaggerating, just think of what will happen to Naruto when he learns he has a sister. As of right now, Naruto is regarded by all of the elemental countries as the Rakuda Sennin's successor and a very dangerous A-rank shinobi from Konoha. They will never give a damn about this Tayuya girl with the Rinnegan because they have been comparing her to him for years, Jiraiya said. Tsunade nodded solemnly. I am well aware of that, understanding that it was the reality. But Tayuya is a resourceful one. She'll find a way to stand on her own somehow, just like her mother. From his seat, Kakashi said, well, she has been training under Kurenai for the last 3 years, so she should be fine on the mission. At that, Jiraiya scowled and said, talking about the mission. Are you planning to send Team Guy to support them? They could use the assistance. At that border, they're needed. Kakashi shook his head. Every day, Otto grows more audacious and attacks a greater number of our convoys. The majority of the village's teams that aren't involved in Chunin exam security are away for training. Team Guy is the only team I have available right now for any mission involving Otto. They're on their own for the time being, Tsunade said with a dejected sigh. Wind region. Northern woods. Okay, what the fuck was that shit? Stain? Tayuya yelled out of shock and terror. Naruto said simply, it's something I've been working on, as the group approached their fallen opponent. My father intended for it to be a 6-stage process, so it's not quite finished. I still have a long way to go because the jutsu I just used was only stage 4. Not done yet, Tayuya remarked, it looked bitchin' to me, as they peered down at the remnants of Itachi. When Naruto said, Yugito, check the body. I don't think this was Itachi, the Kumo ninja nodded. I concurred. That seemed too simple to be Itachi, Yugito muttered as she knelt next to the deformed corpse. You call that easy? Tayuya asked. Yugito, whose hands were glowing green, nodded. 3 years ago, we weren't even able to touch him. Even though we've grown stronger, there's no way we could have defeated the real Itachi in that short of a time. Fireball Jutsu was created by the Uchiha clan. There's no way that can be faked, said Chiyo. A blue blur materialized behind them, and a voice asked, how about this then? Kaizuki. Yugito cried out, turning as her arm flared into a flaming blaze. The man brandished a massive sword, and there was a loud clang as the jutsu connected. Yugito held her ground while the others fled. The first to respond was Tayuya, who held up her hand to both of them. Unexpectedly, Yugito was drawn back towards the group by an unseen force. The redhead whispered, Bansho Tenin, as Yugito landed next to the team. Alright, another Rinnegan user. Now that I think about it, the blue figure kind of reminds me of Leader. Sama that is, at least without the icy demeanor he exhibits, he smirked. Hoshigaki Kitsune, Yugito snarled, and his smile grew bigger. That's me, he declared with a shark-like smile. What leader? Naruto asked. With a shrug, Kitsune said, Leader. Sama founded Akatsuki, of course. He has the Rinnegan too. Not that it matters right now, kid. The Rinnegan is held by the Akatsuki leader. But how does that imply that he is an Uzumaki? Shaking himself, Naruto thought for a moment. I'll worry about that later. We have more pressing matters to attend to, such as saving Gaara. Raiden. Reryuden no Jutsu. Despite the distance, Yugito threw a punch at the swordsman, and a lightning dragon erupted from her fist. As it got closer, Kitsune smiled and spun around to avoid the blow. He landed a few feet away, just in time to see it explode in static and rock where he had been standing moments before. He made a hand seal and parted his lips, widening his smile. Let's dance, little kitties. With a cackle, a huge wave of water shot out of his mouth. Sweden. Bakusu Shaha. The group had to jump onto the trees above to avoid getting caught in the flooded area. Naruto warned the others, everyone be careful, we don't know where he'll appear. Saying, how right you are, kid, Kitsune materialized behind them. Suiro no Jutsu. The team whirled around, but they were just not quick enough. Abruptly, water burst from below, encasing Yugito, Yamato, and Naruto in water balls. Kitsune focused on Tayuya, who was still free after escaping and landing a short distance away, while using his water clones to keep the spheres intact. Naruto gritted his teeth, feeling his chakra ebbing away moment by moment. Damn, he caught us, he thought to himself. I can't focus enough to perform a Shinra Tensai, and I'm unable to perform any other jutsu either because of how this thing is affecting my chakra. Cats hate water for a reason. Yugito glared at the Kiri Nukanen. I'm no pushover, but that Rinnegan surprised me red. How about I chop off your legs? With a smile on his face, Kitsune lunged forward and struck Tayuya's position with his sword. They could make a pretty nice meal, he said. Tayuya leapt away, barely avoiding the initial blow. But in a matter of seconds, Kitsune was upon her, slashing at her once more, but this time, she was prepared. She produced 3 hand seals that Naruto recognized right away, and then lightning appeared to encase her fist. Chidori. As she channeled the jutsu into a monstrous sword, Tayuya echoed. Kitsune quickly absorbed the jutsu and pushed her away once more, asking, did that thing just absorb my jutsu? The sword burped in response to her query. I believe that should be interpreted as a yes, Kitsune smiled. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he observed this, thinking that Hokage Sensei was the only source of knowledge for her jutsu. He must have assumed that her Rinnegan would compensate for the user's vision weakness. But for now, I have work to do. I'll worry about that later. With closed eyes, he extended his hands towards the water prison wall and pleaded for it to continue working. Abruptly, the chakra began to flow out of the water and into Naruto's body. Fa, Jutsu Kya, in. When the ball of water surrounding the Naruto abruptly collapsed and the blonde stood once more, Kitsune became startled. When the swordsman went to free his team from their own prisons, he sent a frustrated glance in their direction. He continued to attack Tayuya, though, and kicked him in the midsection. The swordsman, however, grabbed her ankle before she could go very far and threw her straight down into the water. Let's see how you like this. Kitsune threw Samahata onto his back and started sealing his hands. With a fist slam into the water, he exclaimed, "Sweeten. Gashokuzame." Suddenly, 5 water-based sharks appeared beneath the artificial lake and headed in the direction where Tayuya had fallen. Saying, "Shinra Tensai," Tayuya leapt out of the water and back onto the surface. "You're not bad, but you're still not up to leader. Sama's level," Kitsune remarked, raising his sword. "Megan. Narakumi no Jutsu," was whispered by Tayuya after making multiple hand seals. Kitsune was in a genjutsu when he abruptly stopped, but he dismissed it with a quick shrug. But it was merely a diversion that gave Tayuya the extra time she needed to prepare for her next attack. The redhead cried out, "Chidori," as she punched a fist covered in lightning through the swordsman's chest and out the other side. When it dissipated, Kitsune smiled and fell back, hitting the water. "Hey. Not bad, Red. Not bad at all," he said. A moment later, the other members of the team arrived at her side and examined the body. When Kitsune abruptly vanished, a bruised and beaten Tsunajonin with a hole in his chest from Tayuya's Chidori wound was visible. "Since Mukade retired years ago and I know he was utterly loyal, it must be some sort of jutsu." When Chiyo saw the body, she said, "There is no way someone like him would have joined my grandson willingly." After saying, "Come on, we're wasting time," Naruto led the group back into the trees. Wind region. Northern woods. They had decided it would be unwise to continue at night, so they had set up camp later that evening. After their previous battle with Akatsuki, they were all worn out and knew it would only be a matter of time until they killed Gaara and took out Shukaku. If they were to save the teenage Kazekage before tomorrow afternoon's deadline, they had to get some sleep. Because of the wood it burned and the slight rise in flames, the campfire sparked. Everyone else was sitting quietly around the campfire, with the exception of Yamato and Chiyo, who had already fallen asleep. Naruto broke the quiet, asking, "Are you going to tell me now?" With a concealed fear in her eyes, Tayuya asked, "What do you think, shit, Stain?" "I think you're an Uzumaki, but I was told all of them died in Whirlpool Country. Now I find out that not only you have the Rinnegan but also the leader of Akatsuki has as well. What the hell am I supposed to think here?" asked Naruto. "Well, I'm an Uzumaki, but," Tayuya stammered, unsure of how to proceed. "But what?" asked Naruto. "My parents were Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. I'm kinda your." She was cut off. "You're my sister." "Bullshit," was Naruto's straightforward response. The two females were quiet at that. "You really expect me to believe after all these years that I have a long-lost sister who's been Rakuda knows where and now you come back?" they asked. Yugito told him, "It's the truth, Naruto," which made his head snap in her direction. "Do not start with me, Yugito. I'm mad at you too. You should have told me the moment I got back, not waited until we're in the middle of an S-rank mission to throw this at me," Naruto responded. Tayuya looked back at her and said, "Hey, lay off her. She didn't say anything because I asked her not to. I was captured by Orochimaru during a raid on Iwa after our parents died and I ended up in Konoha 3 years ago. Arrow Hokage offered me a job as a kunoichi of Konoha and I took it, so here I am." After a good 10 seconds of staring, Naruto got up and left without saying anything. Yugito warned the former Auto Nin, "Tayuya, don't take it too personally. He just needs time to come to terms with this. I'm sure he'll accept you in no time. He's a good guy and I've never known him hold a grudge before." "I hope you're right." His thoughts were racing. He was unaware of his sister's existence until today, despite her being a close relative. His initial feelings were one of betrayal, followed by rage at being duped, and finally perplexity. What action was expected of him? They were not related, even though they were strangers. The same could be said of Tsunade and him. He wished Ero Sennin was here, if only to offer his godfather some guidance on how to handle this strange predicament he was in. And there was Yugito to think about. He had no idea what to think of her. There was no doubting his feelings for her, but he was aware that he couldn't afford to get attached to Hera after all. You can't really blame him given what transpired with Sasuke and Sakura. If there was one thing that Naruto detested above all others, it was traitors, and those two had a lot to answer for. In his view, people who desert those close to them for any reason, no matter how legitimate, are worthless. Then there was Akatsuki to think about as well. If Kisami's claims were accurate, the leader of Akatsuki appeared to possess the Rinnegan. Though he couldn't be certain, he hadn't noticed any indication of dishonesty from the swordsman. If that turned out to be the case, Akatsuki posed a greater threat than anyone had realized, even himself. Naruto shook himself in his futon, realizing he was straying once more. Right now, bringing Gaara back to Suna. Controlled territory and handling the Akatsuki operatives tasked with capturing the Ichibi were his top priorities. That is the only thing about it. Wind region, northern caverns. The group emerged from the trees and stood before what appeared to be a red arch. A tunnel was blocked by a boulder on a cliff beyond it, and the boulder had some sort of paper seal on it. Naruto said, "It looks like a gofa, Kekai." 1 second, after quickly recognizing it. "Okay. I can see chakra papers in 4 directions around us and 3 chakra cores beyond this boulder. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he said, looking around with his Rinnegan activated. At that moment, 4 clones with Rinnegans appeared at his side. Naruto remarked, "I'm never going to get used to seeing in more than one direction at once," as the clones flew into the trees. Yugito questioned him, "What are you planning on doing?" Naruto responded, bringing down the barrier, and leapt up to where the boulder's seal was. Grabbing hold of it, he bided his time until the clones aligned. He followed suit after witnessing the clones rip off their own seals, and the barrier vanished in an instant. Jumping down, Naruto made several seals with his hands. Naruto muttered, "Doden, Doria, Katsu," and the boulder parted to let them in. "Well, that's one way to knock," Tayuya joked as they went inside. "You're a little late, we've been waiting for 5 whole minutes," an irate voice uttered. In the now-lit cavern, 3 figures could be seen. The first was a blond man wearing the distinctive Akatsuki cloak, his mouth in his palms. The second figure had a man with a hunched back and a mask covering his face. The last figure was on the ground behind the 2. It took Naruto a moment to notice the red hair and deduce that the figure was Gaara, though it was hard to tell because of the cave's poor lighting. "Gaara," Naruto muttered as he saw the immobile form of the teenage Kage. The little runt was tough, but he still fell in the end. "Now which of you are the Kyuubi and I the Jinchuuriki?" Deidara laughed. Yugito shot back, "Who do you think, assholes? Give Gaara back now," Naruto commanded. "I know you don't want to hear this, Sasori, but let me play with the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki," Deidara said with a laugh as he turned to face his partner. "No, I will face the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki. You've already fought the Ichibi Jinchuuriki, so you can have the Nibi this time," Sasori said to him simply. When Naruto slammed his palm into the ground and said, "Doden, Doria, Katsu," the earth split in 2, dividing the 2 Akatsuki members. Tayuya immediately followed up with, "Bansho Tenin," drawing Gaara in her direction. As the Akatsuki agents recovered, she caught him and said, "I think he told you to give the Sandman back to us, you fuckers." "I was really annoyed by that," Deidara remarked. "Deidara, focus," said Sasori. In response, the former Iwa.Nin said, "Art is an explosion. Yamato, take Gaara and the old hag and get out of here. Head for Suna. Hopefully they've sent someone to back us up," said Naruto. With Chio trailing closely behind, Yamato nodded and bounded out of the cave, carrying Gaara's motionless form in his arms. "Good luck," he said. Naruto snapped at them, "You're going to pay for this, you bastards," with a clear voice. "Yugito, Tayuya. You 2 deal with the gender. Confused weirdo over there while I deal with this doll. Loving prick." "Alone?" Yugito questioned. Red flashing in his eyes, Naruto nodded and said, "I won't be holding anything back. I think I'll take my art outside. It's too cramped in here," Deidara remarked while modeling a clay dragon. A moment after he leapt onto its back, it took off. With Yugito and Tayuya following, it took off from the cave entrance and flew away in an arch. Tayuya yelled, "Come on, let's go after him," and they fled into the trees. Naruto and Sasori were facing each other in the cave. "Now it's just you and me," Naruto stated emphatically. "What the fuck are you exactly?" Sasori asked, revealing a large puppet that resembled a scorpion covering his body when his cloak was pulled off. Sasori answered, "A puppet master. And this is my act. I call it Hiriko," before unleashing a barrage of kunai from his scorpion mouth. Naruto sidestepped the volley by slightly extending his Rinnegan and rolling to the side. Naruto joked, "You're too slow, old-timer," after completing his hand seal. He yelled, "Futon! Kazuryuden no Jutsu!" and a wind dragon emerged from his fist. "It appears that the stories about your abilities are true," Sasori said. averting the wind dragon as it struck the spot where he had been just a moment before. Interesting wind jutsu. But then I expected nothing less from a wielder of the Rinnegan. It wasn't a question. The leader of Akatsuki has the Rinnegan, doesn't he? Who is he exactly? Inquired Naruto. I'm not sure, Sasori said indifferently. Naruto questioned him, and you work for him? In his puppet, Sasori shrugged slightly and said, excellent art is something that endures long into the future. Eternal beauty. Naruto shot forward and said, I'll remember that when I carve it into your tombstone. Let's go wild. Sasori raised his left arm, and the arm shot out in the direction of the approaching blonde. A wave of needles shot out of the movable limb, but Naruto avoided it at the last second and continued to move. When Naruto got closer to Sasori, he whispered, Shinra Tensei, and blew the needles away. I didn't realize you Rinnegan users could perform gravity jutsu, Sasori remarked, his tone slightly tense. My move, he said as he moved to pierce the blonde with his scorpion tail a moment later. Kage Bunshin on jutsu, a shadow clone materialized next to Naruto, snatching him just in time to avoid conflict. At that point, the real Naruto managed to avoid the tail and launch a straight strike. He yelled, Rasengan, as he struck his opponent with the spinning chakra ball. When Sasori's scorpion puppet was reduced to a heap of junk and he had to leap out of it to land a few feet away, his eyes grew wide. The true Sasori stood, watching the blonde Konohajonin kick away the pieces of the puppet he had just destroyed, his Akatsuki cloak still covering his body. With a puff of smoke, Naruto's clone disappeared. You know when Chio Obaken said you were her grandson, I pictured you being older, around Hokage Sensei's age. But you barely look 16, he said. With a small smile, Sasori remarked, like I said before. Fine art is something wonderful that's left long into the future. With that, Naruto squinted his eyes and said, You're immortal? Maybe, the puppeteer said incoherently. I'd like to show you my favorite puppet, he said, taking out a scroll. A puff of smoke indicated that Sasori had broken the seal inside the scroll and was removing the item it had been holding. This one was very hard to finish, but I managed, he said. When the smoke cleared, a somewhat human-looking puppet in a black cloak was visible. But that's what makes me so fond of him, the speaker said. Upon seeing the puppet, Naruto exclaimed, What the hell is that thing? Sasori replied, Let me introduce you to my favorite puppet, the Sandaime Kage, as the figure spun around him. A human puppet? A horrified Naruto questioned. Sasori stated plainly, I try to create eternal beauty. Naruto growled, That's an abomination and I'll destroy it, here and now. Sasori said, You can try, and he advanced the puppet to attack the blonde. Naruto dodged the blow from the blades attached to the puppet's right arm by leaping backward. A moment later, he cursed as the Sandaime swooped down from above, forcing him to jump even farther back. Sasori yelled, Here goes, as he raised the puppet's left arm and the panels parted to reveal seals within. Senju saw Bu, as dozens of wooden arms shot toward the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki as they emerged from the seals in a blue chakra glow. Naruto swore and threw his weight to one side, saying, Damn it. Shunpo no jutsu, he said as the arms struck his previous position, vanishing in a flash of yellow and resurfacing on the opposite side of the cave. Sasori remarked, You're fast, after observing the blonde's quickness. But you cannot fool the eyes of a puppet master. We pay very close attention to detail. Judging by the slight movement you made before you executed your jutsu, I would hazard a guess that it is a one-way jutsu, making you unable to make any deviation in your intended course. Then once you came out of your jutsu, you were forced to steady yourself slightly, indicating that your speed decreases rapidly at the end of transit. Am I wrong? Naruto fired back, So you figured it out. Give the guy a reward. I can't use that jutsu anymore because he won't fall for the same trick twice, or else he'll use it against me. Damn it. Shall we continue? Sasori smirked. Let me show you the power that the Sandaime Kage wielded, which made him the strongest Kage. The iron sand. A swarm of black sand appeared to emerge from the Sandaime's mouth and drift into the air next to the puppet. Naruto saw the black sand swirling in the air and thought, this does not look good for my life expectancy. Sasori yelled, Setetsu Shigur, as a shower of metal containing iron sand shot in the direction of the blonde. Naruto yelled, Doden Doryuheki, and slammed his open hand onto the ground below. He could no longer see the approaching hail of death because the ground in front of him rose up and formed a wall. The barrier held strong and spared the blonde from certain death despite the iron sand's repeated slams into it. "Insolent little child," Sasori muttered as his attack failed to produce the desired result. Naruto leaned his back against the makeshift barrier and yelled, "Is that the best you've got?" The puppeteer whispered, "Setetsu Kesha," and the iron sand gathered itself in midair to form two objects. One was a massive hammer, and the other was a spear of similar size. Kyodai Tetsui. Naruto muttered, "Oh crap," and dashed for safety as the hammer brought down the barrier. Kyodaisa. Naruto yelled, "Damn it, damn it, damn it," again as he rolled to the side and barely avoided the big spear that was aimed at him. "Now what?" the iron sand asked as it abruptly withdrew and gathered close to the ceiling. "Simply put," Sasori said, "get ready to die." Naruto apologized, "Sorry, but I'm not interested," and sealed his palm. Then, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and two clones materialized next to him. As soon as he extended his hand to the two, they began charging his next jutsu. Chakra and fire combined to form a fast, spinning sphere in the blonde's open hand, and she heard the distinct sound of explosions. It shot outward at a high speed as he held it up to the group of iron sand. Kaden. Resenden. With a loud bang, the fireball struck the iron sand, then burst into a blaze of heat and flames. A moment later, the iron sand crumbled and the ceiling was blown away. When it was over, Sasori gave the blonde a glare, and Naruto gave him a sly smile in return. Naruto warned him, "You shouldn't play with fire, you'll get burned." Sasori told him, "A small setback, I can always make more iron sand." "Don't you need the Sandaime Cage for that?" Naruto asked, his smirk expanding into a smile. "No," Sasori said, turning to face his favorite puppet, his eyes widening. With two spiraling spheres, Rasengan, another Naruto struck from above, destroying the puppet and sending its remnants clattering to the debris-covered ground. "You," Sasori uttered, his voice laced with venom, as the Naruto he had initially believed to be real was poofed out of existence. "You really thought I was going to let you get off another jutsu?" said Naruto. When Sasori heard that, he grunted. "You're quite the odd one, Kyuubi Jinchuuriki." "Fine. I haven't been forced to solve a problem this way since I first joined Akatsuki. I wonder how long it's been." The member of Akatsuki said, removing his cloak to reveal that his body was no longer human. Naruto questioned, "You turned your own body into a puppet?" upon seeing Sasori's body composed of a mixture of metal, plastic, and wood. "I haven't used myself in a long time," the red-haired Akatsuki member said. Wind region. Northern caverns. Sasori approached from the side, both of his blades spinning as he got closer. Instinctively, Naruto leapt over the attack, only to have the tail end of the cable that was coming at him later catch him in the shoulder. The pain made him wince, but he dismissed it and looked at his shoulder. He immediately understood what that meant because it was green. Naruto said, "Your attacks are poisoned." "Of course." With a menacing expression, Sasori growled and gestured towards the blonde with the tubes he was holding. Flames shot out of the tubes and covered the area, forcing Naruto to hide beneath a patch of turned earth. The blonde swore as he opened his shoulder wound with a kunai to release the poison. When Kyuubi was poisoned, his chakra would always slow down, but fortunately, the foul chakra could destroy practically any poison that existed. It would take longer to destroy a poison the more deadly it was, and to be honest, he didn't have the time to wait for Kyuubi to eliminate this specific poison. Raising to his feet, Naruto bolted from the cover as Sasori's flamethrowers attempted to grab hold of him. A moment later, the blonde leapt as high as he could and sealed several hands before inhaling deeply. The blonde let out a huge gust of wind that caused Sasori's eyes to widen. Futon. Renkuden. The wind burst through the already destroyed cave, bringing down surrounding trees and destroying what remained, which would eventually form a lovely little lake. Sasori's demolished and motionless puppet form amid the debris. There was a pause, and then Naruto felt something change in the air behind him. He sighed and turned to walk away. Quickly turning around, he saw that Sasori's body was healing and would soon be able to fight once more. "What does it take to kill you?" Naruto let out a shout. "Didn't I say that there was art in eternal beauty?" asked Sasori, giving him a crazy expression. A moment later, he took out a scroll and opened it. Observing, aka Higi. Hyaki no Sa-en. Naruto was only able to see 100 puppets materialize overhead. To think you've pushed me this far. I once destroyed an entire country with these, said Sasori, placing his right hand to his face and shaking his head. With a swift hand. Seal. Naruto's form burst into chakra. In Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, the demolished cave was overrun by precisely 100 shadow clones. Numbers mean nothing to me. Angry at the puppeteer, Naruto yelled. So many clones. Once this is over, I'll add your body to my collection. The number of clones you can call on a whim will be very helpful for me, Sasori said, his face displaying a deranged expression. I'm going to beat your wooden ass into the ground. With a shout, Naruto and his clones leapt forward. I know that arrow. Sennin would have preferred that I not use this jutsu, but I'm at a loss for ideas on how to keep this guy down. You can try. Sasori's puppets charged and he fired back. As Naruto moved across the battlefield, there was fighting between the puppets and the clones. As he approached his intended target, his clones stopped the puppets' attacks on him. When two puppets moved in front of him to obstruct his way, he launched one kunai in Sasori's direction through the quickly closing opening. Following its passage, the kunai burst into smoke and changed into the true Naruto, or Henge no Jutsu. He made a seal with his hands, and two clones materialized to run beside him. At what time did he execute a henge? As Naruto approached Sasori, he asked in a surprised tone. He asked himself, what is that jutsu? As he heard a white object resembling a shuriken appear in the blonde's hand and a bell, like screech, vibrate through the air. Futon. Rasen Shuriken. As he rammed the jutsu into the puppeteer's chest, Naruto let out a cry. Sasori was blown back and encased in a sphere of power and wind, and there was a brief moment of silence before an overwhelming boom reverberated throughout the area. The wind finally exploded with a massive blast of wind, slashing and tearing at his form. With the puppets all dead, the surviving clones set about destroying what remained of them with explosive notes, while the real Naruto continued to stare at the Akatsuki agent who was still standing. Oh my god. I didn't think you would use that kind of jutsu. My body is disintegrating, I can feel it, Sasori growled. For the record, that's what happens when your body becomes a puppet. Naruto told him, my jutsu isn't finished. If it was, you would already be nothing but dust right now. With a shattered expression, Sasori said, you're something else. Kyuubi Jinchuuriki, I'm about to pass away. I'll do something useless for you beforehand as a prize for beating me. You know, Orochimaru, don't you? Uncertain of his intended direction, Naruto nodded and said, yes, I intend to kill him. Splendid. I have a spy in Otokagure no Sato, one of Orochimaru's personal henchmen, smirked Sasori, his smile growing slightly. It appears that I won't be able to meet him at the Tenchi Bridge at noon in 10 days as planned. Why are you telling me this? Naruto inquired. Sasori replied, because it's something pointless, before his body broke into dust and vanished a moment later. Cinching his fist, Naruto remained motionless for 20 seconds until a column of light shot out of the ruined vessel that had once contained Sasori's heart, his only human component. Naruto skidded back a little as an object flew at high speed right into his hands after hovering there for a brief moment. A moment later, the blonde shook himself and glanced down at the object in his hands. It was a necklace made of brown crystal that made him feel as though a gentle breeze was blowing around him. 3 of 6. The prophecy is almost here, wise. What is this? Glancing around and then back at the necklace he was holding, Naruto asked. You are the last hope, the child of prophecy, destiny. Who exactly are you? The voice asked Naruto. Required no longer. Moon. Biju. Following a brief period of quiet, it became evident that Naruto would not receive any responses. He proceeded to wrap the necklace around his neck, just as he had done with the previous 2 he had received. A moment later, he turned away and, aware that his teammates were undoubtedly heading in that general direction, took off into the trees towards Suna. Wind region. Northern woods. After nearly 15 minutes of chasing the airborne Akatsuki member, Yugito and Tayuya could still hear the unmistakable sound of explosions coming from the place behind Tama where they knew this man was fighting his partner. Deidara sneered back at them from atop his clay dragon as he ascended higher into the sky above the narrow valley. Yugito gave her the order, Tayuya, get ready, as she lit her arm on fire. Your move, bitch, smiled the redhead in response. Kaden. Dai Kaizuki. A long blade of fire extended towards Deidara, startling him and widening his eyes in the process. It sliced straight through his arm, making him gasp in pain as he attempted to maneuver around it but was unable to do so in time. Deidara growled to himself, "That bitch. She just took off my right arm," then felt someone approach from behind. "Damn it," he thought as he quickly turned to see Kyuubi approaching him, her fists covered in lightning. The redhead yelled, "Chidori!" as Deidara leapt aside, with a swift cut through the clay. "Dragon!" Kyuubi let the two ninjas fall into the trees below. "Kyuubi, are you okay?" Yugito inquired as she materialized by her side. "Just fucking great," was the reply from the redhead. "These two immature people are annoying me," Deidara scowled at them. "We're going to kick your ass, bastard," Kyuubi retorted. "You think you can get away with killing innocent people?" Yugito told him not to even consider that for a moment. "If by innocent people you mean I the Jinchuuriki, then allow me to tell you something. Aside from that red-haired brat of a cage, we have already apprehended two of them, and in both cases, they were repulsive beings who detested everyone and themselves. People were actually relieved to see them go. Not a single person tried to assist or defend them." Deidara grinned. "All monsters don't deserve to live. Just like you." Kyuubi noticed Yugito's expression, which was one of stone. "Who are you to decide who should live and who should die?" The redhead angrily yelled as they turned back to face their opponent. "It seems like you, bastard, are the only monster here." Before Kyuubi could go any further, Yugito commanded her to stop. The blonde kunoichi merely remarked, "If anyone doesn't deserve to live here, it's you," as he cast another glance at the Akatsuki agent. "Whatever you say, demon," Deidara mocked her. Yugito said, "You're too careless," with a predatory-looking smile. Feeling a figure drop in behind him, Deidara spun quickly to see it was another Yugito, this one with flames all over her arm. She cried out, "Kaizuki," as she used her jutsu to cut the other Akatsuki member's arm off of his body. "You bitch!" With a roar, Deidara moved to kick her. "Chidori," Kyuubi muttered as her fist, covered in lightning, ripped through the man's back, spitting blood everywhere. N.No. Kyuubi pulled her hand away, and Deidara rasped out. In an instant, he was on the floor. He remained seated. "That was too simple," Kyuubi uttered. Remembering what they had been told about the man when they were in Suna, Yugito pondered, "I know. He must have run out of clay when he fought Kazekage-sama." She made sure the man was dead by checking his pulse. "There wasn't any. What do we do now?" Kyuubi inquired. Something said, "We meet up with Yamato and the others," from behind them. "Are you two all right?" they asked as they swiftly turned to face an exhausted Naruto before settling in. "The guy was almost out of chakra and weapons to throw at us, but we're okay. For that, I believe we can thank Kazekage-sama," Yugito informed him. Kyuubi concurred, saying, "Yeah, the fucker went down in only a few moves." "Akatsuki have 3 of the Biju in their possession now, including the Ichibi," Yugito told him. "Let's get out of here," sighed Naruto as he nodded. Once more, the 3 fled into the trees after he sealed the body. Wind region. Unremarkable, when the 3 reached the grassy open plain, they saw that Gaara was still alive and that there were numerous Suna ninjas around, including Temari, a now-healed Kankuro, Yamato, and what appeared to be an unconscious Chiyo. When the group noticed them coming, they moved toward the center, where Gaara was standing and paying Chiyo his respects. "Gaara?" When Naruto arrived at the former Ichibi Jinchuuriki, he inquired. Gaara said, "I am alive, Uzumaki. Chiyo Obaken saved me," in response to his unassisted query. He questioned the Kazekage, "What happened?" "She sacrificed her life for mine," Gaara answered, looking at the person who had died to save him. "She gave me a message to give to you. She said that the world will always belong to the younger generation." The statement, "We must return to Suna. Everyone move out," was met with a blank expression on Naruto's face. Gaara turned and started to move away, but as his legs were still getting used to his new control, he fell forward. He was helped to walk by Naruto and Kankuro taking hold of his arms. The others in the group trailed closely behind as they headed in Suna's direction. Wind Country. Main entrance, Suna. When they arrived back in Suna, the Kazekage was brought to the hospital, where Yugito, the most experienced medic there, took care of him. Gaara still possessed some of the demon's residual abilities despite not having the Ichibi sealed inside of him. What stood out the most was his rapid rate of recovery and his mastery over sand. Gaara was given permission to leave the hospital and resume his responsibilities as Kage 2 days after they arrived back in Suna. The villagers rejoiced over his return, and Team Naruto was naturally made to go by Gaara's request. After getting recall orders via Messenger Hawk, the team finally left for Konoha on the 3rd day. "Well, I guess this is where we part ways, huh?" To the young Kage, Naruto asked. Gaara extended his hand and said, "Thank you for everything you've done for me, Uzumaki-san." "It's actually Namikaze now. Tayuya is an Uzumaki," said Naruto after accepting it. Gaara's expression briefly turned to surprise, but then he nodded and said, "I see. Do be careful on your journey." "Hey, it's me," a furious Naruto exclaimed. "It's why I'm concerned," Gaara muttered. "Akatsuki now has 3 of the Biju. They will come after you and Ni-san soon." "No problem," Naruto assured him. "I hope so," Gaara said, nodding as she retreated a step. After telling his group, "Come on, let's go. I want to be back in Konoha in 3 days," Naruto turned to leave. "Hey, wait for me." As Tayuya followed him, she called. Yugito bowed, Kage, Sama, and followed. After saying, "If you find out anything about Akatsuki, please send a message to the Hokage," Kage, Yamato quickly trailed behind them. "What do we do now, Gaara?" Tamari made her brother ask. Gaara said, "We prepare," as he turned and went into the village. Fire Country. Hokage Tower in Konoha. Is the information trustworthy? The Hokage questioned the group gathered in front of his desk. He didn't seem like the kind of guy who would lead us astray. He shared our desire to kill Orochimaru and generally seemed to be rooting for me to do so. Furthermore, we can fight our way out of it even if it is a trap, Naruto went on. "Are you certain you want to follow Naruto through with this, Yugito?" Kakashi questioned the pair of blondes. Yugito responded with a nod, "We have to do this. Sasuke and Sakura must take responsibility for their actions." Naruto informed him, "We must face them." Slowly nodding, Kakashi said, "I see. Very well then. Proceed, confront this spy from Akatsuki, and try to get Sasuke and Sakura back." In response to the instructions, Naruto nodded and said, "Thank you. Before you depart, let me introduce you to our newest member, Sai," Kakashi said, before the door opened to reveal a pale Anbu who was not wearing a mask. "Hello, my name is Sai," the newcomer said, flashing a glaringly fake smile. "Sensei?" Naruto turned to face the Hokage and asked. "I had to make a compromise with the village elders regarding you and Yugito," Kakashi sighed. "The leader of the Root Anbu, Danzo, wanted one of his men on your team in return for letting you both to carry out your missions. Sai is the man he chose." When Yamato saw the boy, he thought, "Senpai, I hope you know what you're doing." "Why is that smile there? It's obviously phony," Yugito squinted at him. Tayuya's opinion was, "He's hot, but that smile is plain creepy, meh, who am I to judge?" "Danzo, Arrow. Sennin alerted me to his presence. With caution, I must handle this one," Naruto thought to himself as he turned back to face the Root Anbu. "Welcome to the team," he nodded. All Sai could do was smile his trademark. "It's a pleasure to be working for Konoha. Dickless, I hope you can lead well." With a simple, "I'm gonna kill him," Naruto flexed his knuckles. Clearly stating, "I'm going to Omegakure no Sato," Jiraiya turned to face the Hokage across the desk. Perhaps they were lying, Kakashi speculated. Jiraiya simply shook his head, saying, "I need to make sure that Nagato is the true leader of Akatsuki. He was one of my students, Kakashi. Would you be questioning my actions if it were Minato instead?" "No, I wouldn't," Kakashi said. "Then, if possible, bring along a small team," he said. "The Gamma." Sennin shook his head once more, saying, "Stealth is needed here. I must enter aim alone in order to enter undetected because a full squad of ninjas won't be able to do so." Kakashi sighed and leaned back in his chair, saying, "Fine, go." Jiraiya said, "Thank you," and turned to walk away. Nobody anticipated the events of that specific mission. Border Country. Fire. Grass. The remainder of the day was spent by the now 5-person team traveling to Grass Country, where they planned to meet the Akatsuki spy and, presumably, obtain some valuable intelligence from him. Naruto snarled at the Root Anbu, "Sai, if you call me Dickless one more time, I swear to Kami that I will kick your ass. Sai just grinned and said, I'm sorry, Naruto-san. I was merely expressing my viewpoint regarding your capacity to guide the group. Naruto growled in annoyance. Well, you're what we normal ninja call an asshole. I swear you're worse than Sasuke on his worst days. If that's the case, allow me to draw attention to two crucial flaws in your reasoning. Both Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke are traitors who left the village. Sai grinned and said, I am not a traitor like they are. Tayuya joked, well, your personality could do with some work. And what personality do you think I should use? Sai asked her, grinning. Dickman, that's not something you can decide, the redhead scowled at him. Everyone has a unique personality that defines them, so it comes naturally. And I suppose yours is the tough girl who curses a lot? Sai asked. In response, Tayuya gave a slow nod. What's up with you, anyway? You behave as though you have no concept of what emotions are. Once more, Sai grinned, I'm not sentimental. What do you mean you don't have feelings? It was Yugito who made the inquiry. With a smile, Sai turned to face her and replied, just like I said, I don't feel anything. Surely you must feel something? After a brief pause, Tayuya asked. All Sai could say was, no, I don't feel anything. After a brief period of silence, Naruto said, let's stop at the next town for the night. He was glancing at the other three teenagers. We can take a nap there before leaving tomorrow night for the bridge. The meeting isn't for another 3 days. What do we do until then? Tayuya inquired. That's easy. We practice and get better at working together. Naruto said emphatically, even if the spy wasn't followed, we still have to catch them. I can teach you all some jutsu that I know. They're Doden and Suiden jutsu, Yamato said, glancing at the I the Jinchuuriki. I am sorry Yugito-san, but I do not know any Raiden or Kaden jutsu. With an understanding nod, Yugito said, Yamato. Taicho, don't worry about it. It's okay because I'm still honing my own jutsu. Yamato. Taicho, Naruto uttered to capture the man's interest. I heard from Hokage Sensei that you can use Mokuton jutsu, right? The others present were taken aback by the question. Yes, that's correct. I would rather not discuss how I came to possess this specific ability, Yamato nodded. Since the only person on record to have ever been able to use Mokuton jutsu was the Shodai Hokage, I was wondering if it was possible to learn it, Naruto was saying. It cannot be taught. You would need to have Senju blood coursing through your veins in order to even be able to use it correctly. You might not even be able to use it even then. Look at Tsunade. Sama, please. Though she is a Senju, Yamato told him that she could not use Mokuton jutsu. Tayuya and I both have Senju blood flowing through us. We share ancestry from the Senju clan from the Clan Wars. Additionally, the Senju are descended from the Rakuda. Senin, the Anbu captain said, his eyes glimmering with surprise. He turned to face the team's root Anbu and concluded, it's not exactly public knowledge, but it's not like certain people don't already know that detail. Danzo. Sama is already fully aware of this information, Naruto-san, Sai grinned. I assumed so, Naruto replied, aware that nothing could pass that man. Alright, I'll try teaching you Mokuton jutsu, but my skill pales in comparison to the Shodai Hokage. I may not be of much help, Yamato acknowledged. A little assistance is preferable to none at all, Yugito shrugged. Could you please teach me the jutsus you used in the previous mission? Do you recognize the Rinnegan family? Asked the Kyuubi Jinchuuriki Tayuya. I'll teach you one of my Rinnegan jutsus if you do. Given the chakra levels involved, I can't really use it correctly. What is it? Over his shoulder, Naruto questioned her. A jutsu called Shibaku Tensai. Grass Country, Hot Springs, Hitomi Town. A day later, they arrived in town and made themselves comfortable at one of the many hotels. The team chose to visit the nearby hot springs after checking into a hotel. This choice started a fascinating series of events. Well, before I leave, that's enough male bonding for me. The Naruto. I believe there is something you ought to be aware of regarding Jiraiya. Sama, Yamato exclaimed as she left the water. Naruto halted his journey toward the wall dividing the baths for men and women. Looking around, he inquired, what is it, Yamato? Taicho. Jiraiya. Sama was a small boy once, and a very long time ago, he almost died. His arms were broken, and he suffered 6 fractured ribs. Do you want to know why he also experienced multiple internal organ ruptures? He was allegedly caught spying on Tsunade, and she gave him a severe beating. Let me ask you a question before you jump out of the spring and glance over that fence. In that same circumstance, how do you think Yugito-san would respond? Naruto's face went white at Yamato's question. Considering what the man had said, Naruto watched as the Anbu captain headed for the changing rooms. It would definitely be worthwhile, the blonde thought to herself, and once more headed for the fence. Ready to go back now, bitch? Tayuya inquired. It was growing late, and the female hot spring was deserted but for the two of them. Yugito told her, "You go ahead, I'll catch up." After giving her friend a brief glance, the redhead struggled and made her way to the changing rooms. With a satisfied sigh, Yugito reclined the spring's edge and peered over the deserted bathtub. She took a towel and wrapped it around herself. She vanished in a flash a short while later. You should never try to spy on someone who can locate you precisely from a distance. Naruto blinked at seeing his fellow blonde simply vanish as he had been peering through a man made hole in the exterior of the spring bath. What do you think you're doing? From behind him, still only wearing a towel, Yugito inquired. He let out a startled yelp and abruptly recalled what Yamato had previously informed him. I'm not going to peep. Really, I apologize, don't kill me, please, he shrunk. That's when Yugito realized what he was wearing or not wearing. Just as she had done for hers, he was modestly covered by nothing more than a towel. Looking away, she blushed, and he did the same. She continued to blush as she said, I'm not going to kill you. If you wanted to see me like this, then why you could have just asked, she murmured. He stepped away and said, yeah, I'm sorry, I think I should go. He was stopped when she took hold of his hand. Yugito? He inquired after observing her behavior. I know we've been busy lately, but do we have to keep dancing around the issue? Her question came out stuttering. With hesitation, she said to him, can we just not stop? Yugito? He questioned, puzzled. She leaned in to give him a kiss, saying, just this once. A moment later, she stopped and said, can we just be ourselves? Just us, with no goals, no ties to the past, no inhibitions, and no Kumo, Konoha, or Akatsuki. If you want, he said, gazing into her eyes. The two were enamored with each other as she gave him another kiss. Grass country. Hotel, Hitomi Town. The red-headed Rinnegan user slept soundly as the morning sun streamed through the small town. She rolled over to get out of the sun, moaning. She knew she wouldn't be able to sleep any longer, even after burrowing her head into her pillow, so she groggily sat up. The futon Yugito was meant to sit on was empty when she turned to look at it. Her first thought was that she hadn't returned last night, her second was that she wasn't sure where she was. And her last was that the redhead had a big smile on her face. Yugito would only willingly sleep in one other Placia Naruto's futana because that cat would only be with him. However, Tayuya turned her attention to the window and sighed, realizing that her best friends and her brother's extramarital affairs were really none of her concern. She gave a blink. Is that Dickman out there in the open? When Tayuya noticed the Root Anbu's black figure sitting a few dozen meters away at the edge of the balcony, she asked herself. She dressed quickly and left the room. With a sketchpad in hand, Sai sat cross-legged at the edge of the balcony. He finished another drawing without making any facial expression, but like the previous ones, he was unable to give it a name. He looked over his shoulder and saw Tayuya approaching. I never figured you to be the artistic type Dickman, he said. Appearances can be misleading, Sai said in a monotone. Don't I know it, she said with a sour laugh. You know, for a guy who says he doesn't have any feelings, you sure do create a lot of shit like what's in your hand. The same could be said for you and your music, Sai said with a simple smile. Fuck you, retorted the redhead. No one who was sane, anyway, disparaged her music. After a moment, she calmed herself and asked, what's its name anyway? Pardon me? He inquired courteously. Your drawing. What's its name? Tayuya stated, pointing to the sketchbook he was holding. Sai continued to smile and said, to be honest, nothing good comes to mind whenever I try and give them titles. The right words escape me, and I just don't feel anything. For a brief while, the two were silent. If you don't feel anything, then what is this exactly? Tayuya extended a tiny sketchbook and asked him a question. That's... With a sigh, Sai removed the book from her grasp. It isn't finished yet. because it belongs to my brother." "Oh, where is your brother now?" inquired the redhead. "Dead," was his response, cutting her response short. Kyuubi informed him, "So that's even more reason for you to genuinely feel something." "And what expression would I need to make?" Sai smiled and asked. She had no response to offer. "Hey you two," from the hotel entrance, Yamato called. "We're leaving now. Go get your things and meet us at the Eastern Plaza." "Yes, sir," each of them nodded to indicate comprehension. "Good, you're both here. Now we're just waiting for Naruto-san and Yugito-san." "Where are they exactly?" Yamato, irritated by their absence, inquired. "Hey." The two blondes got closer, and Naruto called. He sighed with satisfaction. "Aw, isn't it a great morning?" Kyuubi turned to face Yugito, and for a minute their gazes were locked. Yugito turned away, and as she looked at the Kumo-janin, a big smile spread across her lips. "You two didn't come back last night, and you look like someone who just had an amazing fuck. How was he?" Kyuubi whispered in her ear. "He's your brother," Yugito growled back, looking very ashamed. "That's not something you should be asking me." The redhead merely smiled more and said, "That good, I see." The I the Jinchuuriki growled, "Shut up." Yamato said, "You seem to be in a good mood this morning," as soon as he saw the team captain. With a few knots released, Naruto rolled his shoulders back and said, "And why wouldn't I be? It is a lovely day, and we will soon be able to finish this task." At the statement, Yamato arched an eyebrow, but then simply shrugged and turned away. "Was she disappointed in your sexual relations with her?" Sai inquired, but she had other ideas. "No, and shut up already." Naruto glared at him. That day was just one of those. Tenchi Bridge in grass country. The cloaked figure said, "Sasori, greeting." As he took off his hood, Sasori observed the Akatsuki spy and remarked, "How the time flies." Yakushi Kabuto was the one. "No tail?" Sasori inquired in a rough voice. "I promise you none," Kabuto said. "How do you feel?" was a straightforward inquiry. "There remains some disorientation from when your jutsu dissolved and I started remembering who I really was, but it'll pass," Kabuto said. "How many questions?" Sasori inquired. Kabuto said tensely, "I've risked my life coming here, so please be quick. There isn't much time." "Where is Uchiha Sasuke?" inquired Sasori. "There are several hideouts, but these change from week to week, so his location cannot be pinpointed. Some are in countries outside of sound that Orochimaru's spies have infiltrated and maintained for us. But there is no set transfer plan or pattern. We're currently laying low at a safe house on a small island in the northern lake, but we'll be moving in 3 days' time." "Uchiha Sasuke is also there right now," replied Kabuto. He hurled a kunai at the bushes behind him when he heard a sudden rustle. He exhaled in relief when a tiny rabbit emerged shortly after, saying, "Just a rabbit." Kabuto turned to continue, "So regarding the matter you asked me to look into. Even after Orochimaru transfers bodies, he puts up a protective barrier on the cell specimens from the old host body, so I have not been able to analyze them." "I see," Sasori said, nodding to the details. "Look, this is taking too long. If Orochimaru discovers I met with you, death will be the least of my worries. You know what I want. Now give it to me," Kabuto said after a moment, sounding almost panicked. "Very well," Sasori said, reaching into his cloak in response. He produced a kunai a moment later, and a figure materialized behind Kabuto. As Sasori and Kabuto leapt away from him, Orochimaru asked menacingly, "Interesting conversation. Do you mind if we join you?" Shaking his head, Kabuto said, "I wouldn't have gotten away in time if you hadn't pulled out your kunai, Sasori. Your attire evokes memories," Sasori grinned Orochimaru. "Have you followed Kabuto?" asked Sasori. "Oh come now, I just wanted to say hello and thank you for sending me this one. He's been so handy to have. Every time I develop a new jutsu I need at least 100 human bodies to experiment on. Thanks to Kabuto's medical ninjutsu I get to use them over and over again. There's such a shortage of volunteers, you know," Orochimaru said as two prominent individuals appeared at his left. One was a man with dark hair, dressed in black and white, a katana horizontally strapped across his back. The other one matched her pink hair with an outfit of red and pink. These two people were Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura, Nuknins of Konohagachure no Sato, upon closer examination. From behind Sasori, in the tree line, Yugito whispered, Kami. There they are. She clenched her teeth at the circumstance, saying, I couldn't sense them until they were right on top of him. Naruto reassured Yugito, saying, Don't worry about it. We knew that this might be a trap. Sasori was suddenly sliced open, revealing its occupant, and Kabuto's hand turned into a blur of blue energy. When Yamato leapt back, a wave of snakes attacked him, grabbing hold of him and biting down. The real him fell farther away from Kabuto and the new arrivals, and he turned to wood, shattering a moment later. Disoriented by the circumstances, Yamato remarked, I don't understand Kabuto. You're supposed to be an Akatsuki spy under Sasori's sleeper jutsu. I'm afraid your intelligence is a little out of date. Orochimaru Sama removed that problem a long time ago, Kabuto made it clear. So you were just pretending to be under Sasori's jutsu while you were really under Orochimaru's jutsu instead, Yamato thought. Wrong again, I'm afraid. Orochimaru Sama and I share a common philosophy. I'm with him of my own free will, said Kabuto. Who are you anyway? You ruined out plans for Sasori, he replied. Orochimaru grinned and said, Patience Kabuto, everything will be revealed in due time. Starting with the 3 rats hiding behind Papa Rat here. With a gesture toward the front, Yamato said, Why am I not surprised to see you, Naruto-kun? As 4 figures appeared before him. Sakura exclaimed, Naruto, Yugito, upon seeing her former teammates. Dobi, Demon Woman, Sasuke uttered in an unimpressed tone. Naruto said, It's been a long time Sasuke, Sakura, while he studied the 2 Nukenin. As Yugito gave them both a once over, she said, I see you've been doing well for yourselves, huh traitors? With a sly smirk on his face, Orochimaru said, Well, isn't this a happy reunion? And here I was hoping to fight my old partner Sasori, but instead you brats show up. Well, that explains Papa Rat over there. Of course he would be on your team, huh Naruto-kun, Yugito. Chan? He thought as he gazed at Yamato. Naruto turned to see Sasuke's eyes change into his Sharingan. Everything around him changed in an instant. The mindscape of Naruto. Jinchuuriki seal when Sasuke entered the sewer. Like mind of his former rival and friend, it was damp and dark. Entering what was obviously the main room, the one housing the Kyuubi's cella, he appeared stoic. The beast noticed him when he looked up at it. A massive fox head emerged from the water in front of the cage, glaring at the visitor. An Uchiha dares to step into my presence? Know your place, abomination, for you are in the presence of a god, Kyuubi said. A god? More like a pet, the fox growled, and Sasuke grinned. You should respect your betters, abomination. You are only here thanks to those things you have for eyes. A product of your cursed bloodline, Kyuubi said with a sneer. Sasuke said, It seems this isn't your first encounter with these eyes, simply glancing at him. You really don't know anything, do you, abomination? Even with those eyes you still cannot see through your hate. It is fitting, I suppose. Your chakra is vile and reminds me of Uchiha Madara. Make no mistake, abomination. You have no power here, Kyuubi said with a dark grin. Sasuke began, Do not undervalue the power of the Uchiha clan. I just need to suppress your power so I don't need to deal with it outside. Your hatred has blinded you, I see. How do you plan on accomplishing such a task? Your will has always been inferior to my cantainers, said Kyuubi. The Dobi holds no significance, declared Sasuke, moving forward to seize the fox head by its nose. But when someone grabbed his outstretched hand, he was stopped. What? Teme. You do know that your dojutsu is nothing but a bastardized version of the Rinnegan, don't you? Do you really think you can enter the head of a Rinnegan user and do whatever the fuck you want? Get over yourself, Naruto told the fox. Furious, Sasuke smashed into the wall and barked, You. The last time we fought I could have killed you. I didn't want to, but I could have. I thought we were friends, Teme, but clearly I was wrong. Looking at you now I see that. Last time I only spared your life on a whim. And now I'll take it on a whim, said Naruto. He yelled, Now get out of my head, and mentally destroyed Sasuke. The Kyuubi asked his jailer, How much did you hear, boy? Naruto glanced at the fox's head, All of it. You got some explaining to do, fox. Who the fuck is Madara and why did you keep calling Sasuke an abomination? The fox laughingly said, Heh heh, it seems that sister of yours is rubbing off on you. You'll find out the truth in due time, boy, before reverting back to its watery enclosure. Where were you anyway? You just let him enter here and make it all the way into this room before finally stopping him? Why? In all honesty, Naruto replied, I was in his mind while he was in mine. He laughed, I now know exactly where over 47 of Orochimaru's bases are, both in grass and sound countries. With his crimson eyes glowing in the shadows behind the bars, the Kyuubi chuckled darkly, even now you continue to amuse me, Naruto. Just like he did. But do not think for a second I will bow before you like I did to him so long ago. We are still enemies, never forget that, boy, and do not think for a second that I will not eventually be free of this seal. Naruto said, you can try, Fox, and turned to walk away. He said, but for now you owe me rent, and vanished behind the archway. The Kyuubi thought to himself as he was left alone once more, even now you act like him. I suppose it's fitting that my second jailer is the successor of my first jailer. Tenchi Bridge in Grass Country. Sasuke rubbed his eyes and looked away. Sasuke-kun? Sakura inquired with concern. Naruto, who had also returned to the world of the living, stated emphatically, never try to enter my mind again, Teme. Next time I will do more than just throw you out. Yugito asked her fellow blonde, how do you want to play this, Naruto? Naruto informed her and the other members of the team, we'll take them on separately. Yugito, you take Sasuke, and Yamato, you take Sakura. Tayuya and Sai, you two take Kabuto. He was asked by Tayuya, what about you? Orochimaru is mine, Naruto answered. Do you really think you can win here, Naruto-kun? The Otokage asked with a playful smirk. Naruto answered emphatically, we'll kill you. We'll do more than just win. Shunpo no Jutsu, he said as he materialized before the Otokage in a flash of yellow, holding a ball of chakra the size of his chest. He exclaimed, Udama Rasengan, as the jutsu connected and shot everything within range into the air. With his left arm glaringly absent, Orochimaru descended onto a tree and continued to sneer at the blonde Konoha. A moment later, two hands shot out of his mouth, opening it wide enough for another Orochimaru to come out totally unscathed. You have the Rinnegan and the Kyuubi, and that is the best you can do? Pathetic, the Otokage mocked, tossing his broken body aside and grinning at the blonde once more. Naruto growled at him, I killed Sasori, so I will kill you too. At that bit of information, Orochimaru arched an eyebrow and said, you called Sasori? Heh, interesting. You're still very amusing, Naruto-kun, but you're still not in my or Sasuke-kun's league. Raising his hands, dozens of snakes shot out in all directions, calling Naruto, Senei Tajashu. When Naruto noticed them approaching, he quickly made several hand seals. Futon. Renkuden. Taking a deep breath, he released a tremendous gust of wind that tore through the trees and mangled snakes in its path. A good 80-foot radius was leveled when the wind bullet exploded in a tremendous blast. Still grinning, Orochimaru dropped to the ground on the now smooth surface. Mandara no Jin, and hundreds, if not thousands, of snakes slithered toward the fair Konoha from Orochimaru's mouth. With a blade protruding from their mouths, every snakehead was undoubtedly prepared to slice or stab their intended victim. There are a lot of snakes, man. You have to use that jutsu. I have no other choice. Naruto thought to himself as he formed several hand seals. This guy is as strong as arrow. Sennin when he's serious. Mokuton. Taju Daijirin no Jutsu, Naruto said, throwing out both of his arms, which instantly transformed into wood. Orochimaru's smile vanished as a look of surprise crossed his features, and he appeared to be filled with hundreds of sharp wooden spikes. A flurry of wooden spikes was used to impale and otherwise kill the snakes. Orochimaru got up, no longer amused, and when it was over, the wood detached from Naruto's body and his arms returned to their usual position. The Otokage demanded, how can you use the Yondaime Hokage's jutsu? It was Naruto's turn to giggle, you don't know your history that well, do you? The Senju and the Uchiha clans both descended from the Rakuda Sennin and by proxy the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan was responsible for creating jutsu and discovering chakra, so of course I can use it. It doesn't matter to you though, since you'll be dead by the end of the day. We'll see, sneered Orochimaru. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, the blonde Konoha said as two shadow clones appeared next to him and extended a hand in their direction. Orochimaru worriedly thought, oh dear, this is unfortunate, as he noticed the two clones focus chakra and heard a peculiar screech fill the air. He created multiple hand seals while biting his thumbs. Kuchios. Sanya Rashomon. He yelled as he slammed his hands into the earth a moment later. 3 enormous demonic gates materialized in front of him. That ought to contain him, he thought. Naruto leapt forward and slammed his jutsu against the enormous gates. Futon. Rasen Shuriken. The first gate broke completely as soon as the jutsu touched it. The second one fared no better, and the third gate could barely withstand the force of the attack for a half-second before collapsing. When Naruto rammed the jutsu into Orochimaru's midsection, he was blown back, and Orochimaru's eyes widened. The chakra shuriken grew, enveloping the Otokage in a whirling ball of force and wind. He let out a painful scream as the jutsu tore apart every nucleus in his body, causing them to explode in a gust of wind. Orochimaru writhed in agony as he fell into the center of the freshly created crater. Orochimaru loses, Naruto declared emphatically. The Otokage roared, his body exploding upward. No, I refuse to be beaten by a failure like you. Orochimaru roared. Yamada no Jutsu. As his body transformed into a huge snake with 8 heads. Naruto exclaimed, "What the hell is that thing?" upon seeing the monstrosity. As 2 of the heads descended upon the blonde, Orochimaru screamed, "Die," from one of the mouths. What on earth is this? As he avoided the 2 enormous snake heads that attempted to eat and or crush him, Naruto thought to himself. It transformed into an enormous serpent possessing 8 heads. How in the world can I harm him now? Think, damn it, think. He rolled beneath one of the necks, creating multiple hand seals. Moments afterward, enormous trees shot out of the earth, tossing the enormous snake skyward and proclaiming, Mokuton Hajutsu. Jukai Ka Tan. The Habi. Sennin roared at him and tore out of the artificial forest, saying, "The abilities of the Shodai Hokage will not save you here, boy. Shibaku Tensai is the only jutsu I am aware of that can deal the necessary amount of damage, but I haven't mastered it yet." Futon. As he attempted to collect himself, Naruto thought, Renkuden might be able to slow him down, but eventually he'll get me. Orochimaru yelled, "Die already, boy," as 5 snake heads struck simultaneously. I have to evade. As he dove out of the way, Naruto thought. Even though he narrowly avoided certain death, he crashed into the forest after being struck in the side by one of the snake heads. Whoa, what just hit me? He moaned in agony. I think all of my ribs just broke, and stumbled back to his feet. Damn it, there's nothing I can do, he thought as he looked up and saw the snake heads prepared to finish the job. Orochimaru sneered and the heads struck, saying, "You have interfered in my plans too many times, kindly die." Naruto burst into crimson light, and the heads had to retreat as a foul chakra swept through the area. A massive shockwave that was at least 5 miles wide and dozens of feet tall ensued. The sheer force that was released astounded trees and the earth itself. The whole area was reduced to a single, sizable crater with a figure squatting on all fours in the middle when the shockwave subsided. With 4 tails swishing behind it, it was a crimson chakra fox. The chakra was so concentrated that it was impossible to see the person inside. Orochimaru said, "Oh dear. This is unfortunate," as he retreated a little. With a roar, the Kyuubified. Naruto extended its hand and the chakra claw shot in the direction of the Otokage. The enormous chakra claw attempted to grab Orochimaru, but his 8 heads slithered out of the way. After missing its first target, the chakra claw sent out 2 more from its arm, each of which was directed towards one of the Otokage's heads. Orochimaru sneered, "Okay, then let's try this," as one of the heads turned and opened, unleashing a number of snakes at the chakra claws. When they came into contact with the claws, they melted almost immediately. Oh dear, he grinned and launched one of his heads straight at Naruto. The head came down on the Kyuubified Naruto, blowing up a batch of earth as it did so, and he was unable to dodge the impending attack. Naruto tore through the neck, severing the head almost instantly and, in turn, the rest of it. Orochimaru sneered as he attempted to back away, asking, "You're not even conscious, are you, Naruto-kun?" That would not stand with Naruto. A chakra claw shot out of his chest and struck the big, now 7-headed snake square in the face. A moment later, Orochimaru brought his fist down on yet another of Naruto's heads, his eyes widening in horror as Naruto was pulled by the claw. The forest surrounding the 2 was blown away by the impact, leaving behind an echoey blast. Orochimaru yelled angrily, Damn you, why won't you just die already?" as hundreds of tiny snakes gushed out of the 6 heads he was left with. Ignoring them, Naruto raised and lowered his hand to unleash a powerful shockwave that wiped out more than 400 snakes. When it was finished, he let out a roar and his body erupted in dozens of red and blue chakra balls. The balls all united into a single sphere at the center as his 4 tails stopped right in front of him. Now what? The Otokage asked, knowing he would receive no response. The chakra sphere compressed itself into a smaller ball, which Naruto swallowed a moment later. How do you plan on fighting while weighed down by all that chakra? Naruto.kun was his response, which came when Naruto's fox body expanded into a ball and then expanded again after a few seconds, so that's how. His eyes narrowed as he tried to move away. Contact with chakra so dense would kill even me. Orochimaru attempted to cancel his jutsu but realized he was running out of time. I need to get away now, he said. Yanbiko Amari was all that was said as the chakra ball burst out of Naruto's mouth in a scratchy whisper. Nah. Before his world was engulfed in light, Orochimaru cried out in terror. Tenchi Bridge in Grass Country, Kaizuki. Chidorigatana. A clang was heard as Sasuke and Yugito collided in the middle of the ancient bridge. The others, having separated and gone their separate ways in the early phases of the fight. Both of them could still hear the sounds of the other fights taking place outside of them, especially the one involving Naruto and Orochimaru. Demon woman, please give up. I would much rather you survive and murder a few more Akatsuki members. I think they'll be coming for you soon, Sasuke said coldly. Yugito said, sarcastically, your concern for my well-being is heart-warming. Really? No wonder the Rakuda Sennin chose the Senju over the Uchiha when he had to choose his successor, she said. Sasuke warned her, do not insult the Uchiha clan, in a firm voice. To incite Sasuke's wrath, one could deliberately offend his family and clan. Yeah, they were a great bunch. I have to thank Itachi-san the next time I see him for wiping you scumbags out. Although Yugito was aware that it was a low blow, she was a kunoichi and would use any advantage to her advantage in this battle. She quickly formed the same hand seals after observing him create a set that she was familiar with. The two yelled, Kaden Gukakyu no Jutsu, as they blasted enormous fireballs in the direction of one another. A fiery storm resulted from the two attacks colliding in the center. The bridge's center broke apart, and the deteriorating supports holding it together were covered in flames. Yugito was forced to flee off the bridge while Sasuke, in his Curse Seal Level 2 state, was in the air. That's when Sasuke made his attack. He said, Chidori Iso, as a lightning weapon that resembled a spear shot out of his fingertips and ripped through her shoulder. The attack passed through the tree and her as she flew through the air and crashed into it. She went to her knees in an attempt to treat her wound as he withdrew his jutsu. Without waiting for her to react, he walked forward and grabbed her wrist. He said, Chidori Nagashi, and Yugito let out a painful cry as a shockwave ran through her nervous system. He asked her, any last words? Before throwing her to the ground. S. Screw you, she growled. Sasuke scoffed at her, saying, you're not my type. A blast of purple light burst from her body, and a searing heat wave swept across the scene. The fire cat with two tails, standing 3 stories tall, roared as the light went out. Recalling his fight and subsequent defeat with Naruto 3 years prior, Sasuke thought, this is different than before from both her and the Dobi. She unleashed a barrage of purple flames at him, and he took to the skies. He focused his Sharingan on the demon car's eyes, thinking, in this form, Kaden and Raiden Jutsu will be ineffective. Perhaps I can suppress her. Suddenly, the surroundings around them changed. A mindscape of Yugito. Jinchuuriki seal Yugito's mindscape was one big graveyard, in contrast to Naruto's mind, which was one big sewer system. The area exuded an unpleasant aura due to the scattering of tombstones and gravestones. This was centered around a massive metal cage that held 100-story, tall, ferocious, 2-tailed fire cat. Like he had done with Naruto before, Uchiha Sasuke approached the cage, but unlike with Naruto and the Kyuubi, he was sure he could easily subdue this demon. Uchiha. The Nibi growled at him, you have a lot of nerve exposing your face here. Why is it that you demons seem to know about my clan? Sasuke asked her questions. The fire cat roared, you will get no answers from me, hell spawn. Leave or face my wrath. Demon, you're still in this cage, and I'm telling you to remember your chakra. Don't think you can boss me around. With his Sharingan whirling wildly, Sasuke commanded, obey me. The Nibi's chakra was compelled to retract back into the cage. A purple blur slapped him across the face, screaming, "Get away from her," Yugito said. "I thought Naruto told you not to go poking around at people's heads, asshole." With an enraged expression, Sasuke wiped some blood from his lower lip and said, "I've accomplished what I came to do." After saying, "We'll finish this outside, demon woman," he quickly left. The Nibi told her host, "He's suppressed my chakra kitten. I will no longer be able to aid you in this fight." "Damn it, I hate those eyes," Yugito said, clenching her fists and turning to face him. "Kitten, me and you both." The Nibi urged her not to perish. Yugito gave a nod and vanished in an instant. Grassland. Woods. Chidori. With a fist thrown toward the spot where her heart was, Sasuke exclaimed. Kaizuki. With her human form back, Yugito narrowly avoided the attack and kicked him away. "Even though Sasuke recovered fast, you're strong. You would have made an acceptable consort. You really have to be smoking something illegal if you think I would ever agree to hang out with a bastard like you. Nobody rational would ever choose to be in close proximity to you," Yugito uttered in disgust. "Sakura did," Sasuke said, smirking slightly. Yugito shot back, "And like I said, no one sane would ever go with you. Let's face it, to me, no matter what you do, Naruto will always be one step ahead of you and you will always be second best. Itachi-san is aiming for Naruto and me. He doesn't even see you. I'm not even sure if he sees me, to be honest. He seems more interested in Naruto than in either of us." "I will kill Itachi," Sasuke declared emphatically. At the statement, Yugito sneered, "You and what army? Itachi would have to be partially blind in order for you to even be able to scratch him." "Do not speak to me of Itachi." With a shout, Sasuke lunged forward. "It appears that I have touched a nerve," Yugito grinned while making multiple hand seals. When she was done, she threw her hand out in front of her assailant, and a lightning spewing dragon appeared, yelling, "Raiden! Raryuden no Jutsu!" Though taken aback by the attack, Sasuke recovered fast and dodged the jutsu. "To slow," he said, lunging forward as Yugito readied himself for another attack. A loud explosion rocked the two, and the eastern horizon burst into a blinding white light. When the two turned to face the source, they noticed smoke drifting in from a distance. Sharpening her senses, Yugito found only Naruto's chakra signature pointed in that direction. This indicated that Orochimaru had lost the fight and was now deceased. "So Orochimaru is dead." After musing, Sasuke lifted off. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" Yugito asked. Sasuke simply stated, "I no longer have an interest in the situation," while repeatedly flapping his wings. He vanished out of sight behind the tree line, leaving her alone with her thoughts. "Damn," Yugito sighed in relief and exasperation. "It's useless to track Sasuke. Teme right now." She turned to face the explosion source and took off. "I have to go see if Naruto needs assistance. I doubt he survived the battle and killed Asani without suffering significant injuries." "She's quick," Yamato observed to himself as he sidestepped a blow from Sakura. "She's strong too, because when one of her punches hit the tree behind him, it broke instantly. Actually, I believe that to be Tsunade Sama's super strength, but how did this girl find out?" The pinkhead gave him a roundhouse kick to the side, saying, "Hold still. Fuck that pain." Yamato felt his arm become dislocated, and he sobbed in agony. She turned to face him as he skidded away, saying, "That was a cheap shot." "I'm not a kunoichi," she rejoined. With his other arm, Yamato grasped his dislocated arm and quickly snapped it back into position. When Sakura saw this, he began to form hand seals again and leapt forward. Yamato finished his jutsu and channeled chakra into his feet just as she was about to attack. He growled, "Doden." Doria saw, as rock spikes shot out of the earth around him, attempting to impale the pinkette. Sakura leapt back, landing on a tree branch above the clearing, to evade the attack. What is she, and why can't a normal human see that attack coming and dodge it like it was nothing? Is the question that begs answered. Glancing up at the kunoichi, Yamato asked in contemplation. She said, "OSH*T", as she leapt off the branch and came falling straight down towards him, her fist glowing a bright blue. "Akasha." Sakura hit Yamato's spot on the ground with her fist, letting out an exclamation. The earth broke and tore itself apart, sending a burst of dust skyward. Sakura had stood up, and as the dust settled, Yamato could be seen coughing from the smoke. There is no way in which she could have physically attained this level in just 3 years, according to her file that I was given prior to this mission. She has superhuman speed and has somehow managed to mimic Tsunade Sama's strength. Her development is not normal. I apologize to Hokage Sama, but it seems like she conducted experiments to gain an advantage, Yamato concluded, squinting his eyes at the blonde. I saw you use a Mokuton jutsu back at the bridge, Sakura said with a charming smile. You must be one of those experiments if you're not a senju, which I doubt. Yamato's eyes widened when she said, yes, I read the reports on Orochimaru Sama's experiments concerning the Shodai Hokage's jutsu, and I also know that none were reported to have survived. Besides you, of course. After forming a hand seal and saying, then I think it's about time I got serious, Mokuton Hajutsu. Jukai Katan. Big trees began to emerge from the surrounding ground. I may not be on the level of the Shodai Hokage, but I'm no pushover either, the man said as they finally grew so thick as to block out sunlight where the two stood apart. Sakura immediately began to form hand seals, saying, you'll still lose in the end, after realizing this as well. We'll see, Mokuton. Daijiren no Jutsu, Yamato said, attempting to impale his opponent with his right arm that had turned into wood. The jutsu ripped through Sakura's form, but then it vanished in an instant, leaving us thinking, damn, she used a clone. With a quick turn, he saw Sakura on one of the artificial branches, her hands sealed. She muttered, Megan. Jubaku Satsu, and the Yamato found himself uncontrollably tied to a tree. There's no way this isn't a genjutsu, Yamato conceded, forming a hand seal. Kai, he cried as he broke the jutsu and released the chakra from his body. Realizing that his opponent was directly above him, he turned to check on her quickly, thinking, this is dangerous. Tenkyaku. Sakura cried out as the tall forest collapsed around them and her heel fell upon his position. As Sakura landed on a branch a few feet away, and Yamato landed atop one of the trees fell in their wake. Sakura-san, you know, things could have gone very differently in this situation. If you had stayed in Konoha, you might have become a highly significant member of the medical corps and perhaps even Tsunade Sama's student. Sakura-san, you have merely disappointed Kakashi Senpai, Yamato informed her. Sakura sealed her hand with a, Mokuton-san, I made my choice. Please call me Yamato, stated the Anbu captain. Yamato. I'll keep that name in mind, she said, nodding before opening her chakra. Screaming. Bunshin no Jutsu, 10 regular clones materialized beside her. Is she bringing in regular clones? What is she planning? At best, all she could hope for is a diversion. When Yamato completed his own hand seals, he asked himself thoughtfully. Suiten. Suihachi. He yelled, causing water to spurt out of his palm and drown the clones that were pursuing him. Kaimon. Sakura let out a shout as multiple spirals of green and brown chakra burst from her body. Yamato abruptly turned to face the intense chakra surge, saying, that's the... She's opening her Hachiman. Human. Sakura's chakra output doubled and she let out a cry. Yamato thought to himself, I have to stop her now, and he extended his arm once more, this time turning it into a volley of wooden spikes. Mokuton. Daijiren no Jutsu. Sakura was struck by the attack, but she did not back down. Simon. Her skin had turned a reddish brown color, and her eyes were now dazzling white. There's no other option, Mokuton. Jukai Heki, she's too strong now, Yamato yelled, slamming his hand into the floor. Before him a thick wooden wall rose from the earth. I hope that can hold her. Shoman. Sakura screamed, her muscles bulging. She is excessively powerful. When Sakura vanished from view and the wooden wall he had built suddenly broke, Yamato's eyes grew wide with fear. With a sudden burst of speed, she materialized behind him and delivered 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 punches to his body, leaving him in excruciating pain and erupting in silence. She abruptly spun around and kicked him in the chest, sending him hurtling to the ground and making him bounce twice before coming to a stop. Akasha. Sakura struck the now still Konoha shinobi with her fist, yelling out. It had ended. Sakura was standing over Yamato in the middle of a small crater, her green glow continuing. She closed her celestial gates and her chakra gradually withdrew after making sure he wouldn't be getting back up. She breathed a sigh of relief, then winced as her legs and arms hurt. That hurt, she said with a grunt before bending down. In an instant, she disposed of the body after taking a sample of her opponent's blood, who was now dead. Something said, "Sakura," from behind her. Sasuke-kun. She blinked as she spun around. The Uchiha informed her, "Orochimaru is dead. We're leaving." Makoto Sakura gave him a nod. And Kabuto. "Sensei?" Sasuke uttered the simple words, "He no longer matters," before soaring into the trees. "I'm sorry everyone, but I love Sasuke-kun," Sakura said with a hesitant nod as she turned to face the location of the bridge. A moment later, she vanished after him.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.